First up is the Pledge of Allegiance, and Chief Cooney has volunteered to lead us. So when you're ready.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Have no business before us as the local control board this evening. Next up, order of agenda. Anything we want to change, talk about? So next up, we'll have the presentation.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
in the order agenda, may I ask for a request?
yes.
I think we're gonna have speakers here tonight, also for Fairview Terrace. And I was wondering if we could move that up on the agenda so it won't be so late.
Well, I think we have the other people that are allotted here for their specific times. So I think it makes more sense to leave it there. Otherwise, if people are calling in, they don't call in at the right time to see that topic is the only issue that I have with that. So
Particularly since I think it is obviously something that we're going to.
I didn't realize this was going on either.
Yeah.
So, but before I forget, we cannot hear you back here. The microphones are not turned on.
testing.
Where Joe did one.
What are you trying to say?
So we should speak up is what you're trying to say, right? Okay.
Hey, you don't want to hear me anyway. Testing. Is that better?
How about mine? Do you want to switch?
I'll just sign. So we'll just speak louder, but I don't know. Can you pick up my voice on the other microphones for the, okay. So over to Chief Cooney. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Mr. Chair. It's good to see you in person and face to face again. It's been a while. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce to you tonight, and if you guys can stand as I read your name, that'd be great, and then you can sit down. Brent Chandler, Ayla Pearson, Benning Johnson, Harrison Gaudette, who is not with us this evening, and behind me, the members of V-Shift that were working the day of the incident. You can sit down. These individuals were working as attendants and lifeguards at the Lake Pineo Beach area on Monday, June 28th. In the fire service, we expect our professional rescuers to display courage, commitment, and compassion every day in their duties. Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, this team witnessed the collapse of a man in the parking lot, and their quick actions modeled these expectations. After witnessing the collapse, they immediately recognized a duty to act. They found the individual unconscious with no signs of life and provided the life-saving measures of emergency forces notification through the 911 system. They rendered first aid and CPR and performed automated defibrillation prior to the arrival of advanced life support. Of additional benefit, the Hartford Station 2 on Willard Road happened to be staffed that day, and the ambulance arrived in 3 minutes and 45 seconds after the receipt of the 911 call, a reduction in response time by 7 minutes and 34 seconds out of the primary station. After successful CPR and defibrillation by these young individuals, the ambulance crew arrived to find the patient conscious with acceptable vital signs, and they transported the patient to Dartmouth-Hitchcock Hospital and provided post-resuscitation care. It is my privilege to recognize these 4 individuals with life-saving awards this evening for their actions and their assistance in the saving of a life in this community. I'll call them up one by one. If you guys can stand over here, that'd be great. Brent Chandler. I just want to hit a moment for people to take some photos for me. And I know there's some representatives from the Cruiser Club here tonight. Would you like to say a few words?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Kelly. I'm the general manager at the Quechee Club, but just on behalf of the entire Board of Trustees, all of our committees, and our entire membership at the community at the Quechee Club, we want to thank you for all of your life-saving measures. We're all very proud of you, and thank you for being so brave and saving a life. So thank you very much, and keep up the great work.
And I just would like to say, if you don't have jobs during the fall, I'm hiring lifeguard at UVac. Don't get my card before you leave. No, I'm not. I'm not getting started. Thank you, lifeguard.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Ethan. Okay. So next up is public comment. So if you have something that's not on the agenda, and then you can come up to the microphone and we'll ask that you identify yourself and your town of residence. And there are no personal attacks, and we ask that you spend just 3 minutes on what we're talking about this evening.
Hi, my name is Kathy Phipps. I'm from the town of Hartford. And first of all, I'd like to start off with, I'm not here to restrict gun ownership for any of those who have legal right to do so, or any of that type of use in self-defense. That is not what this is about. However, there's been a person's discharging a handgun in a Hartford residential neighborhood for target practice. This could be to injury or worse, even with the best of safety courses taken. Hartford Police Department has been great. They've been called several times over this past year, since there has been no law or ordinance against using the handgun for target practice in a residential neighborhood. There's nothing they can do. This uses up their valuable time and frustrates close neighbors as they feel unsafe, and no one can do anything to stop it. This leads to the request for the following: a town ordinance to form restricted firearm zones so our neighborhoods will be safe. They've done the same thing in Williston, Shelburne, Essex, Killington. So there's been somebody else that's done it in Vermont. And if it's possible to set an emergency ordinance to have this restricted firearm zones while currently while the whole thing's being worked out, that'd be wicked awesome. So we don't have somebody pretty much in our backyard with a loaded handgun firing at a target. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I'm Melinda Brooks. I'm here at Hartford to support Kathy Phipps, lives across the street, and I'm closer to the shooting. And I think it's time we figure out some common sense ordinances at the town level to prevent the shootings that go on in my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Morris, Hartford. I'm here tonight to ask if the board would consider looking at what we're doing here for the special election coming up. Most normal elections we have are scheduled, people expect them the same time of year and everything else. We always send out postcards to all citizens in the town of Hartford. We put out signs. We're now having a special election, and it doesn't seem we're doing any of that. In the last week, I've run into at least 40 or 50 people who said, what election? And I mean, what we can do to put it out there that there is a special election on August 10th. Like I said, send out flyers, something. We've only got about 13 days left. And I think we're failing on people by not notifying the way we normally do for the election. So I'm asking if you take some consideration, see what we can do. Thank you.
Like,
Can I, Tracy, is for the ordinance, is there something that we can, the gun ordinance, something that you can kind of look up to kind of give us some guidance on what we can do as far as that for the next meeting?
We'll have to, I just wrote myself a note. We're gonna contact the LCT and just get a reading to make sure that an emergency ordinance versus a regular ordinance, because normally for a regular ordinance, you've got 2 readings, 2 votes, those sorts of things. So let me get some clarity on that, make sure we do that correctly, and we'll I'll get back to all of you on the process.
Yeah, just come up to the microphone so people can hear, please. Thanks.
Full transparency, Joe Major is my husband. So we're experiencing this together. So, but you know, the neighbors are not happy.
So there are several neighborhood houses involved. You know, we have people with little children. We have older people who bring their grandchildren to their house to visit. And that occurred yesterday. They had a couple with their grandchildren who are right next to where that shooting was taking place. And those little grandkids were scared to death. So, you know, I mean, they should be. If somebody is, you know, between here and the parking lot shooting at target practice, which, you know, I've got nothing against shooting at target practice. But I do have an issue with having it in a residential neighborhood. So there you go.
Thanks.
And I guess secondly, to follow up with Mike's question, other than social media, at this late stage, I'm not really sure what we can do.
Definitely, I'll have a question for the town clerk tomorrow morning in terms of what we did last time and
Yeah.
what the turnaround was for that. And if we did that special because of COVID, or if that's something we've done normally. I don't have a historical background on that one.
Because it's too late to really print anything up or get anything direct mail. So maybe we can put our heads together and because I do agree with that. Any special election is going to be lightly attended, but we like to get as many people as we can there. So I think that is important.
Definitely. Let's see what we can do with the time we've got left and what we've maybe done before or what we haven't done before.
And people can, as we know, request absentee ballots if they need that option. So that's cool too. Okay.
If we're looking for volunteers to put the signs out, I would put my hand up for that. Done that in the past.
All right. Thanks,
If there's a
Dennis.
certain zone or whatever.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead, Marcy, when you're ready.
Hi, Dan. Marcy Bartlett Wilder. Thank you for taking my call. I am interested to know if what's being asked about some sort of special emergency ordinance takes into account my understanding that there is a non-discharge of firearms within city limits. Am I correct in that? That is my understanding.
I have no idea. I couldn't speak to that.
I would be grateful to know more about that from the board and our town manager.
Marcy, currently the only ordinance that is you cannot shoot towards a street. You can discharge a weapon in a wooded area or things like that, but you cannot point it towards the street.
Okay.
That's currently what the ordinance is.
Okay. And so the incidents you're referring to are people doing target practice, is that correct?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't know what they're doing back there. I can look out from my kitchen window and I can't see them.
Sure.
So there you go. And if it's in it, and I'm not going to sit here and try to measure up with, oh, it's 100 feet. Or it's
No.
do it. Not going to do it. And not to mention, I could have my dog out there. And I don't know if somebody's going to shoot my dog. And I can't see them.
May I ask what the proper procedure is to learn about that? So this woman doesn't need this neighbor of all of ours doesn't need to feel pressured about that herself. I wouldn't want that for anyone. What is typically done to gain more information about who those folks are, what they're doing?
think currently the police respond to the calls when it happens, but we need a faster and more effective system that's sort of more permanent. So
Okay.
Tracy, the town manager, is going to look into that with VLTC and get back to us ASAP and find out from the other towns, most likely what they've done and
Sure.
if it needs to be an emergency ordinance or a permanent ordinance and what the difference is and all the little details.
Appreciate that. Thank you for all of your work.
Great. Thanks, Marcy. What else? Okay. Select board comments or announcements? Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. One is about our new roundabouts. I've been on the smaller one that's towards where Crossroads used to be. Recently, there's been Jersey barriers that have been put up there that have made the circle smaller. And I've been noticing rubber marks on, there's some that stick out in, they're not smooth, they stick out. And I've been noticing rubber marks, and then what I affectionately call the assistant select board member followed a truck there today that couldn't get through there. And so I'm hoping, and nobody was working there either. So something needs to happen there. There's enough truck traffic that goes through there that it's fine, I think, if the Jersey barriers come down or get moved, but trucks are having a big struggle to get through there. So I'm hoping that we can look into that. And the other thing is, I want to mention at our last meeting, I know we're going to talk about Fairview later, but I'd mentioned about cars, if that were to be shut off, and I was hearing how only 100 cars go down through there. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I hadn't looked at the climate emergency document, the committee that they're working on. I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. And that is very interesting reading, and we have a lot of benchmarks to make. And to dismiss that just 100 cars are going to have to go all the way around to do that, and trying to meet this climate emergency goal that we have set. I just wanted I think it's terrible that got dismissed just because there's only 100 cars going through there. So I'm hoping we can take that into consideration later. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Hannah, do you want to reply to?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Hannah Tyler. I'm the Director of Public Works. And sorry, Dennis, we can't see you directly.
I can see you on the TV.
Just wanted to explain what's going on at the second roundabout. So what's happening is there will actually be a mountable roundabout truck apron there. The problem is that because we have to let the concrete cure before any trucks can drive on it, right now we have to protect it and keep that circle isolated until that's fully cured. We fully understand that that's a hardship for some of the tractor trailers that have been running up there. The team has been working with the state of Vermont pretty effectively to limit or redirect any wide loads. But it's something that's going to be there for about a week and a half, hopefully, optimistically, and then we'll have those removed and it'll be a fully mountable truck apron.
I just speak to that just quick. I don't know if you've seen this, Hannah, but some of the Jersey barriers are kind of together, but there's a few that stick out sort of like this. And I'm sure that's what they're catching on. I don't know if those could quickly get repositioned at least so they aren't having that problem.
We'll see what we can do. It's just kind of tough with the configuration and the tools and barricades we have available to us.
Okay, can't ask more than that. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Dennis. Allie, do you have anything?
Oh, no.
Okay, great. So I just want to do a couple quick reminders. Again, voting on the 10th from 7 to 7 at the high school. If you're looking to get a COVID shot and haven't had one yet, there'll be a clinic at Danowitz on Friday the 6th from 3 to 6. It's free and you don't need an appointment. So you can do the one and done, or you can get the second shot if you came the first time. I'm not sure whether they'll schedule more clinics in the future or not, but last time there were 19 people that showed up. So a local opportunity for you to get the shot if you need one. Again, it's free and no appointment is necessary. The state of Vermont is scheduling a COVID memorial on September 19th in Montpelier. I do believe it's from 3 to 6. More details will follow on that as they come to us, but just if you're interested in that, save the date. And again, to all select board members, anyone that serves on the committee, I think the policy has recently changed that the meeting minute notes have to be in within 5 business days now. So if someone is taking notes, it's no longer the 10 days under the COVID restrictions. So if someone is doing the notes and then is going away, we need to make sure those notes get put in within the 5 business days so that we're up to code and not breaking open meeting law. So anyone that serves on a committee or a board, make sure that happens, please. That'd be great. Okay, next up is appointments.
Dan,
Oh, sorry.
Kim Souza has
Oh, yeah.
her hand up
Yeah,
and she's
sorry, Kim,
remote.
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Awesome, thanks. Just in select board comments and relating to Mike Morris's question, I was wondering if there is any chance of a candidates night to happen. I know there's been inquiries about it, but I'm not sure what the status of it is. Tracy, do you know anything about that?
This is going to be kind of a sad answer. The candidates night is held by the town and school meeting night committee. The select board has 2 open appointments on that. And that committee needs to do that work and they only have 2 people. So that's kind of the stick, is that it's not my staff, it's the committee. And we only have 2 people on that committee due to a lack of appointments. Mostly from the select board. The school board has 1 or 2 and the clerk appoints 1. And I believe she has appointed hers. So it's up to those 2 people to do that work.
Okay, well, then I think there might be some conflicting information and maybe Ally could speak to this because I think that someone from that committee reached out to Lisa O'Neill in town clerk's office and she said it was not that committee that organized that. So I think there might be some confusion. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility of doing an informal one. And I'm happy to follow up on that, not after this meeting. But maybe Ally, do you want to clarify what information you got at all?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. I mean, it's pretty similar to what you just shared. And because I reached out to one person who was on that committee just to see if they had the capacity, understanding I think that the other person on that committee is maybe out of commission right now. And oh, sorry. So reached out to somebody who's on that town and school committee to see if they had the capacity. And then they said they had reached out to Lisa O'Neill's and she said that it was not the role of the town and school committee. So I'll be a little bit confused. So
It looks like we need to have some clarity for all of our committees, which, you know, is on the long whiteboard of things for me to do. In terms of what happens when we have a special election. Let's hope we can clarify this one. Because last I heard and my understanding from when we got advice was this was not me or you guys, it was the committee. So let's figure it out in the next couple of days.
And I think to Kim's question, I know Tracy, I was going to follow up with you. Would there be, you know, if the candidates wanted to organize an informal forum, would they be able to use, you know, town hall and maybe some resources to at least have a space to host that? Because that could be something that they could consider if they were able to put something together.
Yeah, let's figure that out if we can just do something a little low key in terms of just having the space and having our amazing volunteer town moderator who does a great job doing all of that.
Melinda Brooks, Hartford. I'm all for that. I'm all for an informal meeting. The previous Zoom and the more information, the better from the candidates. And I could help, I could volunteer. I don't know how I would, but I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Linda. Okay.
Who is this person?
He loves COVID.
Okay, any other announcements or comments from the select board? Other extended families? Okay. All right, so next up, we'll consider the appointment, or the reappointment to Parks and Rec Commission of David Crocco from July 27th, 2021, ending July 26th, 2024. So this is a reappointment, so David does not have to be here. I'm not sure if he is. I don't know this gentleman, unfortunately. Any questions or comments from anyone on the board? Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I know that the applicants don't have to attend for a reapplication, but I thought they at least sent an application. and I didn't see one. So is this something new or did that get missed or what happened there?
I think it's just an email. They don't have to refill out the application. They just say, I would like to continue on. So they don't actually fill out the application a second time. They just say, I'm going to continue.
I think it's just if they're wanting to be newly appointed, they do an application.
Well, thank you for that. I think for a majority of them, they've filled out an application, but I'm fine with this. I just didn't know if something new was happening here.
Well, Lana's the expert on that. She collects them all. She says it's not the case that they just send an email saying they'd like to continue. So
Okay,
that's the information we're going on.
very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Brett, go ahead.
Excuse me, Brett Mayfield, Hartford, Vermont. I do want to, I'll stand up for David, and he's an excellent commission member, and it's great that he wants to continue to serve. So as a member of the commission, I wholeheartedly agree. He's great.
Great. Thanks, Brett. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we reappoint David Crockrell to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a 3-year term beginning July 27th, 2021 and ending on July 26th, 2024.
Is there a second? Second by Ally. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Kim, thank you. Okay, great. So it's unanimous. Thank you. So David, thank you for continuing to serve. We look forward to your expertise on that commission. Tracy, over to you for town manager's report and significant activities report.
Thank you, everyone. I went light on the town manager report because I know we have some rich discussion coming up in this agenda. I feel bad that the top of my town manager report talks about the rainstorms and that we hope that they aren't continuing. They were again tonight. So please be safe out there. If you see a down power line, call Green Mountain Power, call 911. Don't try to fix it yourself. If you see trees down, we're getting to them. And if there's a lot of trees down, Public Works is clearing what they tell me they call white line to white lines. They're making sure that the roads are clear and they're going to come back and work on the stuff on the side later. We're working to maintain the stormwater system, which is like, sure we all know is taking a little bit of a hit as this water all flows through. Just trying to support the staff. It's a really, really, really busy season, as you see from significant activities. We're trying to get summer construction done. Parks and Rec is just bustling. Our assessor and our finance department are doing taxing and property taxes and all of that good stuff. So I'm really just here to make sure that things keep moving forward and that I'm there to support my department directors and my staff as much as possible. I did want to do a little shout out to Michelle Ollie for a fun and insightful tour of the Center for Cartoon Studies. If you're watching at home, I love to get out in the community and see what everybody's up to. So please email me and I would love to get out and see you all next week. I believe I'm going to Northern Stage and possibly cover. So shoot me an email. I'd love to come out and see what you all are up to in the community. In terms of significant activities, again, we're just trying to close out one fiscal year, open up another fiscal year, fire calls, police calls, assessment. The town clerk is getting ready for an election. It's been absolutely all hands on deck full time. I did want to welcome Jonathan Siren, who's going to join our police department as a police officer, and he's coming up from New Jersey. So we're going to give him a warm Vermont welcome here. Sucker him in with our nice weather and get him all ready to go before winter hits. That's it from the town manager's office.
Thank you, Tracy. Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you again. So on this, we've got a little update from the Christian Street Cemetery. And just, I got to think that we as a board should discuss the possibility of cemetery commission or something that, you know, with our taking this on the Christian Street, and there might be others in the future, but we kind of got to get our heads together on whether we should or shouldn't have a cemetery commission. But I think it's worth a discussion.
To have a cemetery commission, it needs to be in the charter. To have a charter, you need to have a charter committee and change the charter. So the first thing I need from each and every one of you is some really good legal mind, deep, detailed mind ordinance people to come in and raise their hand for the charter committee.
Good. And I think I read if we had a cemetery commission, they have quite a lot of authority. I mean, once that's implemented, I don't think that they run, I believe, on their own. Like we don't oversee that. It's more to come, but it's a very important thing if that was to happen. But with our current cemetery crises and having to take over one and possibly more, we should probably be talking about that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Dennis wholeheartedly. Tracy, I do want to ask, can we have what we call, at least to fill in that gap, a working group until we are able to bring it to the charter, so that, because the longer this process goes on, the more in disrepair and that those cemeteries are going to become. So if we can at least have a, whether it's volunteers or whatever, to have a working group to fill in that gap until that time, is that possible?
Yes, but we'd need, I'd love to say all hands on deck. We'd need to look into both kind of liability. So what happens if you're cleaning a stone and it falls over on you and you twist your ankle? Because those of us who work for the town, we're covered. But volunteers often aren't. So we need to make sure we are okay with that. And then also a lot of this really does have to do with that day-to-day management of, at this point, my office is getting calls about people needing to bury their loved ones on a Saturday and making sure all those forms are in place and who's going to perform the actual, this gets really morbid, the digging on a Saturday and things like that. So there's a lot of moving parts, but honestly, my office does not have capacity to also take over what in some other towns in Vermont is a full division of a department. So it would actually be really nice for us to think about some support for my office in some of these areas.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Tracy. Any other questions or comments? Right.
Kim has one.
Oh, Kim, sorry, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I just want to, I mean, we do need to increase the capacity in all our departments. I mean, I have to say, when I read the significant activity report from Public Works, I felt like it sounded defeated, like understaffed. Anyway, I guess budget season is coming, and I hope departments will tell us what they need to become more capable to do all the things that we need to do.
Kim?
Sorry, Hannah and I were having a, do you want to talk about your capacity to take over cemeteries maybe?
So I just wanted to clarify on the understaffed comment. It's actually more related to kind of the hiring crisis that's happening right now. Yes, I would certainly advocate that all of our divisions within Public Works are understaffed compared to other municipalities of the same size. But really right now, we just can't fill positions. So it is a little defeating.
Thanks, Hannah. Thank you, Kim. Anything else? Okay, let's go to bond bank information. No.
You have your presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, come on up.
Do you want me somewhere?
Thomas, how would it be best for Ashley to do a presentation for us? Okay, if you want to come on up, Ashley, we will we'll move this computer over and we'll get you signed into Zoom.
I know that I gave you the PDF to distribute to the select board.
Yeah, we'll throw it up on the screen for you.
You guys want to talk amongst yourselves on maybe that's something else we can go on to mine.
Scott, how do you want to, how long is, do you want to go next? Do you have, how long do you think your stuff is, do you know? Or do you have to do a presentation as well?
Yeah, can I email you or the Wi-Fi? The Wi-Fi is unprotected on Tuesday nights.
That's great.
Mhm. I'm gonna send you the webinar ID, which is easier
Okay.
to copy and paste.
Okay.
Bill doesn't let us take a break until 8.
It's not true.
He runs a pretty tight ship around here and it's unfortunate, but it's true.
But he brings snacks.
But he brings us snacks, so.
So you gave me the ID,
Mhm.
but I don't, oh, I guess I can just sign in from Zoom.
If you go to Zoom
Okay. The web, okay, gotcha.
and it says join a meeting. You're gonna click on that and there's a meeting code. And then once you're in, Thomas will pull you over and we'll put that up on the big screen for everyone. Yes, so click OK and turn off your speaker. All right, Thomas, can we bring Ashley over as a presenter? All right, so you should be able to share your screen now for your presentation.
Open it up before I share my screen. Screen. There we go. So what is the bond bank? The bond bank is Vermont's best kept secret. Most people are probably like, what do you guys do? Well, we do infrastructure financing. We provide access to the capital markets for all types of government entities to do capital investments. Is really what we do at the bottom, very basic. So the Vermont Bond Bank was created by the General Assembly in 1969/1970. We are the first bond bank in the country. We're not the only bond bank. There's probably baker's dozen throughout the country. Like I said, we provide access to capital through the financial markets. Probably want me to make this a little bigger than this. We're looking at the screen. We are a 3-person organization, an executive director, Michael Gahn, myself, Ashley Lucht. I am the director of capital planning, and then we have a controller, Elizabeth King. We are governed by a 5-person board. One of them is the state treasurer, and 4 others are appointed by the governor on alternating terms. Just to give you kind of an example of the impacts that we have on Vermont, you can see our 2020 impact summary. This is these are the loans that we make to all the kind of governing entities out there. So in 2020, 83,000 Vermonters, and you can sort of see on down the list there. Hartford was part of that 2020 summary. I believe it was summer of 2020. For Lori. No.
No, Lori's not here
Okay.
tonight. She had another conflict.
So yeah, I think Hartford participated in the summer 2020, and certainly Hartford participated in this past winter bond pool 2021. You'll see that we support school districts, local government, and special districts are places like fire districts, consolidated water districts, solid waste districts, county courthouses. So any kind of governing entity we can finance. So like I said, we kind of will fund the governing side, and then people, the market invests in the bond bank. They take, there will be local investors, there'll be kind of commercial investors, mom and pop investors, and they will funnel money, they will buy our bonds to provide financing to all the local governments. So in many people's retirement portfolios, they have kind of a bond portion of their retirement portfolio. And that's what your retirement portfolio is. You are buying bonds similar to the bond bank. Maybe not specifically to the bond bank, that would be really great if you could. And we do make it we do make it an option for Vermonters to purchase bonds because we do it at a smaller threshold than some other investment opportunities. So the Vermont Bond Bank, we have really two kind of sides of what we do. We have our pooled loan program, which, like I've said already, provides access to all the towns, cities, governing entities, special districts, school districts, et cetera, for really any type of physical infrastructure. So any kind of thing that you see here, we can fund, including new fire trucks, including energy efficiency projects, so solar panels, even upgrading to HVAC systems, kind of any kind of long-lived asset that is a physical infrastructure we can fund. We also have the ability to refinance FEMA debt and USDA debt. We also, kind of the other side of what we do is there are the state revolving funds. So I know Hannah, your public works director, is very familiar with the clean and drinking water state revolving funds that provide financing for your drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater projects. The bond bank is actually the underwriter of all of those loans. We are the owner of all the agreements, and we work very closely with the Department of Environmental Conservation on those projects. And then our other partner is People's United Bank, who's our actual like money in the bank. The bond bank isn't actually like a you go up to the teller and you put money in the bank. So just a little clarification on that. So advantages to using the bond bank. You're like, well, why couldn't we just go and do this ourselves? And really, that's kind of why the bond bank came about. It was really challenging for a lot of the small communities throughout Vermont to be able to access the market on their own. It's expensive, it's time consuming, it takes a lot of staff time, it takes frankly a lot of experience that, I mean, you guys are volunteers, you have your own areas of expertise, and accessing the financial markets is really not something that most people get into unless you geek out on this stuff, like those of us at the bond bank. So advantages to using the bond bank certainly is that you have economies of scale. We carry a very high rating so that when we go to market, we can get kind of the best rates that are possible. We provide technical assistance when we're working with you on kind of what's the best strategy for funding your project. I know Lori and I have kind of talked turkey about, well, is it better to use the SRF, or is it better to use the bond bank, or is it better to use a local bank? Like, what are the advantages of the funding, of the financing picture? And that's kind of where the bond bank are in terms of the service that we can provide. There is no application fee, there's no loan origination fee, and there are no ongoing fees. The only thing that you're paying for is you're paying for the interest on the loan, on the money that you borrow. I mean, that is a huge advantage that the bond bank provides. Even other municipal bond banks throughout the country do not do that. We have, like I said, a streamlined process for applications to receive a fund. It's an online application. I do my underwriting, we get board approval, and then we go to market. I mean, certainly it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't want to minimize the job that I do, but from the applicant's perspective, you fill out the online application, answer some questions. I come back to you with some back and forth, and then you just kind of sit back and wait for the money to come. For communities such as Hartford that has a TIF district, there's the opportunity for delaying those principal payments on those loans by up to 5 years. And so what that does, obviously in like a TIF district, is that you wanted to get the money to put in the physical infrastructure that will support the buildings that go on top. So you want to provide time for those buildings to be built and for the property values to increase, for the funds to come in to then pay for that infrastructure. And so using the bond bank for those funds allows you to kind of stagger the infrastructure needed to support the development. Level debt payment means you're obviously just paying the same amount of debt every year. It's not like your mortgage where you pay the same payment every year. So each year principal goes down over time. The net interest cost is not locked into the life of the loan. And what I'm saying by that is, so you may look at, Hartford may close on a loan and they're like, oh, our net interest cost is 2%. Well, that's really high. But the reality is that you're probably not going to be living with that 2% interest rate for the life of the loan, because we are always looking for what's called refunding opportunities. So if the market is offering a lower rate after some period of time, we will evaluate it to see if maybe we can get you a better interest rate. And so we will do that and pass the savings on to you. So that 2% over your 20-year loan could end up being 1.5 or 1 or some other thing less than 2%. There is no priority ranking or lengthy application cycle. There's 2 times a year, summer and winter. The winter bond pool is to coordinate with the November voting, and the summer bond pool is typically to coordinate with the town meeting day voting. And we can refinance a bond anticipation note. So many communities, if they do pass a bond, will say, you know what, we really need to get this project going, or we have a fire truck coming and we really just need to buy it. So you can take out a bond anticipation note with a local bank to do planning or to purchase said equipment or to even start the project. And then the loan from the bond bank can come in and sort of pay that off. So you're not stuck with that short-term line of credit for a long time. But also you can sort of take advantage of favorable bidding environment, maybe not right now, but take advantage of delivery of said piece of infrastructure without having to wait to secure the loan. So other advantages that are not necessarily unique to the bond bank, but they are shared by other private lenders, but I would be remiss if I didn't also mention them. So the bond bank does not require specific bidding, procuring, or permitting. They do not have specific requirements for those, except for the ones required by local governing bodies. So Hartford may have their own bidding and procurement requirements. They are not what the bond bank has. And these requirements include not requiring sort of federal cross-cutters. So those of you who are familiar with receiving federal money, there are just a laundry list of federal cross-cutters that you're required to adhere to, and some of them can be time-consuming and challenging. So using the bond bank means that you don't have to adhere to them. We can fund pre-bond authorization planning costs. So this is actually kind of even before you secure a bond anticipation note. A lot of communities will undertake planning in advance of something, building a new public service building, putting in a new park. They will incur planning costs even before they go to the voters for authorization. And so those costs can be rolled into the bond, into the loan. We can be used as a non-federal match for projects and can be combined with other financing sources such as, and I know there's alphabet soup up there, so USDA Rural Development, State Revolving Fund, Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, Agency of Commerce and Community Development. I know Hartford has probably used all of those entities at some point in the recent past. So Bond Bank provides sort of the match funding or even bridge, not bridge financing, but kind of the make up for what you need to provide to kind of make the project whole. And of course, the bond bank can provide funding to projects that other financing sources cannot. For example, water and wastewater system expansion. This is a big one. So you're like, well, there's got to be some cons, right? Like it can't all be great. So you must comply with the rules for tax-exempt financing. Frankly, on the recipient side, it's not onerous. Basically, you have to say is that the project that you're using bond proceeds for are not going to be what is considered private activity. So it's really going to stay as a public benefit. So that's the minimum. You must pass financial underwriting. So I will become your best friend. We only go out to bond twice a year. So again, even though there's no priority ranking and kind of waiting for the money to become available, there is a little bit of it, but that's where a bond anticipation note can really benefit a community. That refunding/refinancing that I mentioned is subject to bond bank approval. We may decide that it's just not worth it for our borrowers. You make semi-annual payments. One is an interest payment and one is a principal and interest payment. And repayment begins after the loan closes, even if the project isn't complete. So I know that scares a lot of people. They're like, oh gosh, well, we took out this loan and we haven't even started the project yet, so we still have to pay for it. Yeah, well, that's part of the conversation you'd have with me on your financing strategy. Is it better to wait? Is it better to kind of put off? Well, what is our interest rates going to be? And that brings me to the interest rate is not guaranteed until the day we go to market. So for example, the summer bond pool, we just went to market on Thursday, and I would be happy to tell you that we got 1.66% on a 20-year loan. So, I mean, that's a really good deal, really good deal. But that's not guaranteed until the day we price. We can give you estimates on where we think the market's going to be, but we do not read the tea leaves. We don't make any promises. So we always encourage communities to never promise what the interest rate is going to be, never promise what the interest payments are going to be. Bond Bank will do our best to price at a time when we think we're going to get the best deal. And we're also not going to go to market if it looks like things are going really haywire. You are limited to a 30-year max term. That is per statute. And you're also subject to a term limited by the asset's useful life. So if it's a fire truck and it has a useful life of 15 years, we're not going to give you a loan for 30 years because that would be silly. The requested loan value must be paid in its entirety. So if the project underruns, unfortunately, you're still live. You're still responsible for the full loan value that you borrowed. There can be some reallocation of costs to other projects, or that unspent money can go to pay principal. And prepayment of the loan is possible, but it's complicated, and we strongly discourage it. So basically, we say that loan prepayment is not an option. And there are some post-project certifications and annual reporting requirements, which at this point boil down to filling out an online form. You're checking a bunch of yes, no's, and then you're submitting your annual report. And that's about the gist of it. So at a basic level, in order to participate in the pooled loan program, you need to require evidence about voter authorization to incur debt. So that, of course, is Australian ballot bond vote. You need a legal opinion from bond counsel. There is a minimum requirement for 1 year's external audit from the most recent fiscal year ending. And we prefer 3 years. And in lieu of annual audits, we will take annual reports. There is, like I said, the online application and post-project completion certification and online reporting. You're like, easy peasy, where do I sign up? Not going to bore you with these details. Essentially, it just kind of lays out the schedule. It's anywhere, let's see, I think the applications were due for summer. They were due the end of April, and we will close on Thursday. So that gives you kind of an idea of how long it takes between when applications are due and when you're going to get your money. And essentially, when we close, the money is available to you that day. This is really more for those who like to really geek out and stuff. So I think it's really important to highlight the really close and strong relationship that the bond bank has with the state revolving funds. I know for those people who are kind of in charge of town governing bodies, they're like, bond bank, who are you? I'm not trying to get a loan through the bond bank. I just want to get my water loan. And it's like, yeah, but you still have to talk to us. So I think it's important to highlight the relationship and also to kind of point out the advantages and considerations with using the SRF versus the bond bank. So certainly on the state revolving fund, there's a 0% interest rate. I mean, that's kind of nice to know that it's going to be 0%. And there's a 2% administrative fee. Like, that's it. There's no fluctuation. It is what it is. Like, take money and run. However, what's also nice about the state revolving fund is there's an opportunity for subsidy. And this would be essentially loan forgiveness for every step of the process. There is the delayed repayment for 1 year after the construction is completed. Again, this differs from the bond bank because you have to start paying back on that loan, even if the project isn't complete. You pay the same payment every year, so like your principal balance doesn't really decrease like it does on the bond bank side. You make one payment annually. You only pay back what's borrowed. So if your project underruns, you only pay back what you asked for in reimbursement. And there's no prepayment penalty on the loan, and there's no requirement for an external audit. Some considerations of the state revolving fund is you have to comply with the federal crosscutters. Again, those can be kind of a drag. There is the priority ranking system, which means you have to get your application in once a year to get ranked with all the other projects that want the very limited amount of money, and then you kind of just have to wait and see. There are project eligibility limitations. So like I said, with the water and wastewater system expansion, the clean and state revolving funds, or clean and drinking water state revolving funds, can almost not ever pay for water system expansions. So if you want to build an industrial park, you're not going to be able to rely on the state revolving fund for that. There is planning, design, and construction oversight, and I put that both as an advantage and as a consideration because, well, it is. It can be really great to have somebody help you with the oversight of construction planning and design, but frankly, it can also delay projects. And let's see here, reimbursement based. The other stuff is kind of minimal, except that you do have to wait for Department of Environmental Conservation loan approval to even start the project. Whereas under the bond bank, you do not have to. Once you have that bond authorization, you're off to the races. And so the bottom line really is that if subsidy is not available, it may be that the bond bank is your better option. That's it. But I know I've talked a lot. I could talk all day about infrastructure financing, but I suspect that there might be some questions, and Preeti do you have any that you would like as audience plant questions?
No, but I think it could be a great moment to let you all pause and reflect on that first part before we get into the benchmark assessment, which you were so kind to do.
Yes, go ahead. Just quickly, you mentioned that interest rates could go down if we're at 2% or whatever it's settled on. Could it go up?
No, we will never refinance for it to go up.
Thank you.
No, that would be cruel. So another thing that the bond bank does, so I mentioned that we have this annual reporting, and I collect towns' audits, financial audits. Well, we've been kind of putting them into a database to create what we call medians. So every financing authority uses medians to determine whether a community is kind of doing great or not doing great. And the bond bank relies on Moody's. So Moody's is an investing authority. They also do rating, bond ratings. So they give the bond bank a rating depending on how well we do. And that in turn provides investors the opportunity to say, well, they're a really good investment, so we're going to pay a premium, which means our borrowers pay less. So we use the Moody's medians as a benchmark, but we've also been able to, over the past couple of years, create our own benchmarks based on Vermont, like specific towns, because Moody's is obviously not Vermont. It's countrywide, and nobody's like Vermont. So nobody has quite the same unique characteristics that Vermont does. So we have been slowly but surely refining our medians over the years. And what we've been doing is, especially for communities that participate in our bond pool, we've kind of been using our credit underwriting analysis and doing a report, if you will, on the benchmarks on how Hartford specifically is doing compared to their peers. So that's what I did last week, is I used your FY20 audit and I compared it with our 2020 medians. We are in the process of updating and releasing our 2021 medians. They'll come next month, but it was promised, I promised, that I would do these based on your 2020 audit. So what you're seeing are the categories of fiscal health that we look at. So unassigned general fund balance as percent of revenue, cash as percent of revenue, intergovernmental, and these are, we have a spreadsheet, and in this PDF document, there are links to the, so I don't know if you got the, if you all got the electronic version, you could click on the links to the spreadsheet that shows kind of where all the calculations come from. But this is kind of where the world is. So bond bank median is slightly less than what Moody's is showing, and Hartford is showing more than what Moody's and bond banks are. So, and let me pull up the spreadsheet. In my spreadsheet, I have whether like above or below is the better way to be. So we want you to be above the Moody's and bond bank median, and so you guys are great. Like you guys are looking great in terms of unassigned general fund balance as percent of revenue. I'm not going to go through each line item because I think that will terribly bore people, but these are just some good markers to use when you're considering where you are among your peers. Now, I want to give an asterisk when we talk about comparing yourself to your peers. Is the challenge with medians is that it's really of the available data, and so if everybody's doing really badly, the medians are going to be kind of really bad, right? And so even though you look good compared to your peers, does that mean that you're good? And I'm not saying you specifically, Hartford. I'm saying the person that I'm comparing to the medians. It's like people are always asking, what's the average water bill that people pay? And it's like, well, that's not really a good measure, because your water system may need to charge more because of the quality of water, because of the age of the pipes, because of like where your storage tank is, because of the size of your system. There are a lot of considerations that go into why your numbers look the way they look, and to compare them so like cut and dry with how the rest of the world looks is maybe not the best. It's a tool in the toolbox, and I would say don't hang your head so highly. So like specifically on, I don't know the right words to say.
So we're not going to win bond bank. Can we win bond bank? Okay,
Well,
okay.
you might. We are getting ready to announce our capital plan contest. So Hartford, you can submit your capital plan for consideration for the best capital plan in Vermont.
Okay, okay.
So you could win. But I'm not giving out any, I'm giving out a participation award trophy for participating in the bond bank pools, but I'm not giving any like first prize as to whose benchmark assessment looks the best. But again, this is just a way for you, Hartford, to see how you are looking compared to other communities. I'm like, you're gonna look at this number and say, holy crap, look how much more debt we have than the Vermont bond bank median. And it's like, but that's okay. That's okay, because you're investing in your community. And a lot of this debt is tied to the TIF district, which has kind of its own little, like if we carved out the amount of debt that Hartford had that wasn't TIF debt, you'd probably be closer to the bond bank median. But when you look at other factors, like what is your debt as a percent of equalized value? Like this is Moody's median, it's 5.5%. So that's like other towns throughout the country is 5.5% debt per equalized value, and Hartford is 1.06%. So you guys are doing great, even though it looks like there's a ton of debt. Like when you start really like breaking it down on some more comparable metrics, you guys are doing okay. And these are just some observations that were made. So you guys have a really good, strong cash position. The budget dedicated to debt service is comparable to Vermont communities. And the above considerations are notable given the high level of depreciation in comparison to total infrastructure. And what that was referring to is right here, there's this capital asset depreciation. And you guys are at 55%, which means the amount of accumulated depreciation is more than half of your gross depreciable assets. So the Moody's threshold is about 65%. So if you're over 65%, then that means you're not investing in your infrastructure at a rate enough to keep ahead of the curve. And so you're kind of in the little higher end, but I'm seeing this throughout Vermont is capital asset depreciation is tending to be very high because we haven't been investing very good in our infrastructure, which is also why kind of debt is increasing throughout the state. And included in this packet is also an evaluation of the water and wastewater funds. So again, not going to bore you on going through the individual line items. I'm sure that Tracy could probably make this available if people wanted. It's public record. There's nothing behind this. There's nothing like super secret about this.
Yeah, no, it's available on the website. And everybody got their packets. So
that was kind of where I wanted to. Did anybody? I'm sorry. Should I let you ask the board if they want?
no, it's all good. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you very much. That's excellent. So it's good to hear that we're in good financial place. It's nice, it's important.
I mean, I'm sure it can be scary because you're like year after year, you're like, well, we keep going out to the voters for more and more permission to borrow. And it's like, that's great. Like, that's good. Keep doing that because investing in your infrastructure is really important because if you don't, then it's just gonna have to get kicked down the road to somebody else. And as you can tell, interest rates are really, really good right now. And so taking on that long-term debt at a really low rate kind of spreads the pain over all the people that are gonna live here for the next 20 or 30 years, as opposed to trying to save and scrimp and do it all in 1 year. It's called intergenerational equity. So taking on debt for long-lived assets is really a wise thing to be doing.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you. In the last time that I think I saw this, we also had a schedule of when our bond loans are retiring. And is it right that the earliest is like 2024?
Oh, the graph that I did last year. So yeah, I did not include the graph in this packet, mostly because one, it was the last time that you applied was winter. And it would be really good if I could get an updated debt schedule kind of as of the new fiscal year, if things dropped off and things were added. So I don't remember the specifics of your debt retirement schedule, but I mean, I will trust you that the funding done.
That's a kind of a guess, but it seemed like it was 23, 24 in that range. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
I got
Many
one.
thanks, Ashley.
Oh, just came up one?
Kim has a question.
Kim, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I thank you for that presentation. That was great. And I was curious, as Dennis was, if it is possible to get an updated schedule of our current debt in terms of the dates of paying off. And I also was wondering if if that capital plan contest you talked about, if you have done that in the past, and if you have, could we see what the winner looked like?
So admittedly, this contest is a selfish endeavor. No, we've never done this before. I started with the bond bank a year and a half ago. It's a newly created position at the bond bank. I actually came from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So kind of infrastructure financing and planning is in my pedigree. We are selfishly asking for these capital plans because like we kind of want to know what's out there, and like we want to know who's got the good and who's got the bad, and frankly it's to help each other. It's to like, let's all learn together, let's improve capital planning in Vermont. Like maybe because a spreadsheet might work for one community and a really fancy asset management software might work for another. So to answer your question, no, we've never done it before, and no, I have nothing to give you as a cheat sheet, but we're hoping to kind of make this a thing, and we can have samples to provide communities so that they can liberate.
Thanks, Ashley. And is I guess Gail Ostrad, our finance director, is a big reason why I'm sure that our benchmarks are what appear to me to be pretty good, if not winning. And I credit our finance director with that, but she's probably also capable of giving us that debt schedule. Tracy, looked like you were going to say something. Go ahead.
That schedule is available in the town report. So each year when we do the town report, we update the debt schedule. So I would have to jog my memory on. I think the pool might be missing from the most recent town report. But other than that, you can find it in the town report, which is always a great thing to read.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other questions for Ashley?
So I'm definitely looking forward to working with Hartford, kind of every bond pool. You guys are very easy to work with. Give me the information that I need very quickly, and it's very clear. So I enjoy working with Hartford. And Lori took me around a couple of months ago to show me where all of the investment is happening. So that was fun to see. It's been a while since I've come down to Hartford, and so to see the kind of the rejuvenation of the community has been very, very nice to see. So.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks for your presentation. I guess that brings us to Scott Housler, Parks and Rec updates, please.
Look at all these Dells coming and going. It looks like we're almost sponsored by Dell. Dell, if you're listening, send us free computers. Comments we're going to make. Scott has a presentation for us too. Ah, fantastic.
Everybody see that okay? Okay, well, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to be here this evening to give you a update on the Parks and Recreation Department and some of the projects that we're working on and have been working on. First, I just kind of want to go through quickly just kind of our department. We have a two superintendent operation under the director. One focuses on programs, one focuses on parks and facilities, and then multiple, along with the administrative assistant and multiple seasonal folks and volunteers.
We're a little stuck.
We're a little slow. It's okay on my screen. There we go. Okay. So we are a department with something for everyone, and we focus primarily a lot on our vision statement and our mission statement, and these are statements of how we focus and operate on programs and programs that we offer to the community. And each year, our Park and Recreation Commission, as well as staff, review our mission and vision statement to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the public. I want to quickly kind of go over some of our parks and what we oversee. We have 19 recreational areas and facilities in the community. Several are major parks, and we consider major parks that a lot of folks will spend visiting on a regular basis. So like Maxfield, Watson, Radcliffe, Kilowatt, those areas are kind of level 1 type of parks that a lot of folks visit on a regular basis. And then there's additional facilities such as the Fred Briggs Park in downtown White River Junction, Engine 494, Hurricane Wildlife Refuge, and so on. Our main facilities are the Wendell A. Barwood Arena, also the Sherman Manning Pool, which was closed in 2018, and we have the planned projected opening in 2022. And then we also maintain the town-owned cemeteries, and those are the non-active cemeteries. So not the active ones where they're accepting burials. So in addition, Parks and Recreation manages the building, the West Hartford Library Community Center. So we manage the building, basically take care of it for its operation. And also we used to take care of the operation of the Welcome Center, but currently that is not in operation. So we still are part of a contract agreement with the Amtrak. So our department oversees the volunteers as well as some of the employees, part-time employees that service Amtrak as they come and depart from the town. This past fiscal year, not fiscal year 21 that we just closed out on, but fiscal year 20, just to give you an idea, we haven't done all of our analysis yet as far as uses, but in fiscal year 20, we had group park reservations issued 180. Number of hour park facility usage for reservations was 4,758. That was even during, during COVID. Other responsibilities, we take care of, lining fields for games, spring, fall, and summer, grooming those fields for softball, field hockey, lacrosse, flag football, all that type of stuff. We maintain them. Arts and entertainment activities. As you can see, here's a list of several community events that we do. We have over 28, or we do have 28 events that we offer the community, and with an estimated number of members engaged of 7,600. And these are just folks that have registered or participated in events and activities that we take care of. A lot of recreation programs, just to give you an idea of the types of things that we do, from toddler programs to road races, to bus trips, to collaborative programs at UVAC, STEM programs, and a whole bunch more. So 259 programs were offered in the last fiscal year. That also involves a lot of volunteers. So, and this gives you a good idea here of what volunteers mean to us. With all the registrations that we do, And most of the folks that participate in our programs, a lot of it relies on volunteers. In fiscal year 2020, there's 3,496 hours of volunteer time, and that equates to $95,000 to the community. So a lot of volunteer hours. We really appreciate all that they do. This is hard to read, I know, but I think it's important for everybody to understand that we try to market and get the word out as best we can. So we utilize just about every avenue of advertising and promotion and use of social media that is out there. So if you aren't aware of what's going on, I'm not sure where else to try to promote what we do. So we do quite a bit, and this gives you a snapshot of some of those things that we do to promote our activities. At the last meeting, one of the reasons why we're here for an update, there was some conversation about some of our facilities and some of the things that we've been doing and completing. So I want to talk about a couple of those just to give you an idea where we are and what's been completed and how we're moving forward. The WAVA facility is one big investment that's taken place over the past several years. And this is also a collaborative effort with the Hartford school system, with the athletic department. But over the past few years, we had the installation of the refrigeration system. In 2018, we installed a new refrigerated floor and dasher boards in 2019. The electric Zamboni was added to the fleet of what is necessary to operate the arena in 2019. New bleachers went in 2020 and a new LED scoreboard in 2020. That was a donation and an effort from the athletic department. So it's, you kind of see it in one of the little pictures there. Sorry, it's small, but it's pretty impressive. And then the installation of our Realize system and heat pump, which the Realize system is, if you remember, we also received a funding through the Vermont energy efficiency organization to put this heat pump as well as the Realize. And the Realize is, if you're familiar with ice making operations, the Zamboni typically uses warm water to make a new sheet of ice. The Realize system uses cold water. So it takes the water and throws it through this vortex that takes the air and some other particles out of the water and provides cold water to the Zamboni. So you're not utilizing a lot of petroleum products to heat the water in order to make the ice. So it's quite impressive little system that we're using, and it's becoming more and more popular in the ice arena business. So it does conserve a tremendous amount of petroleum products and utilities. We don't really have a good picture on the energy savings. We've only had it a year, and it was also during an operation of COVID. So we were shut down, and then we reopened at about 50% capacity, but we hope to get after another year or so a good understanding of how energy conservation efforts that we've taken and how that pays off. Future equipment, installation of field turf for non-ice seasons. And I know there's Dennis had a question related to the field turf that was purchased a few years ago from Dartmouth, and that was a private purchase or a purchase from donated funds through the athletic department at the school district, and it just didn't work out. It was an older system, but all the details, we can certainly reach out to the school to chat with them about why that didn't work. I can't give the whole 100% purpose of it, but we decided that the best option for us is to move forward with the field turf installation in the future. So they're ready to kind of pull the trigger on something. We're going to be a collaborator at some point to try to figure out what's the best option for it. But it will give us an opportunity to utilize the facility for other sports and recreation during non-ice times. The East End is another area that we're planning for some operational improvements to the East End school locker rooms, some better ventilation. There's technically no ventilation in that old end of the building. And obviously with COVID and some of the requirements for ventilation in smaller rooms, we've got to make an investment there to make it safe for the kids. Conceptual planning is also taking place with the Upper Valley Hockey Association and the Friends of Window Lake Barwood Arena to talk about that East End and to help try to do some type of collaborative enhancement for that area, plus some fiber connection to replace a copper communication line that is there. So those are some future equipment and operational planning that we continue to start looking towards for that facility. There was some discussion about the 15-passenger van that was purchased. So I figured I'd give you a good heads up on how that's been working for us. It was in December 2019, the select board approved the municipal lease of the van. In May of 2020, we actually accepted delivery, and then not much took place. With the pandemic, we weren't able to do too much, but we were starting to engage the use of the van in the winter of 2021. Active uses, we use it a lot for ventures, small group trips to Maxfield, Stores Pond, Silver Lake. We use it for teen adventure programs, non-school fun days, and we provide transportation for some of our adult hiking programs. But really working out well for us. Vacation ventures for future small group field trips and teen programs. We actually went to Laser Zone today with a bus or a van load of kids, and senior trips and tours. So we're looking to expand the use for additional programming, not just for our camp. I know there was a question related to the van use as well as bus service. We still use bus service for a lot of our programs, mainly for our large trips and tours that we take. So we work with Butler Bus and sometimes other bus services to provide supplemental support for our transportation needs for a lot of our programs. I wanted to give an example of how that actually works, in particular for our Ventures program. For example, going to Silver Lake, we would have two of our groups. It totals about 80 kids. So we'd have 40 campers, 5 to 7 staff, and some CITs. And what we utilize the van for is to send some, CITs when we do make those trips and some of the other items that are necessary. So we tried to use the van specifically all for the camp, for like a group of 40 kids going out to Maxfield back and forth. Just doesn't make sense to be making multiple trips. So we still utilize Butler Bus, but the van has helped us to enhance our programming. It allows us to do small trips with some of the younger kids. One day we did take all of our CITs out for an outing just to congratulate them on good work this summer. So it really has been a great investment for us and allowed us to enhance a lot of the things that we do. I want to give a quick update on some of the park projects, current and some that are completed. As you might be aware, I'm sure you all are, that the new pool project is coming right along. If you haven't been by there, I encourage you to drive by the school and pop over by the parking lot and take a peek at what's happening there. Demo is complete. The timeline is still for the summer of 2022, and things are moving right along. The actual formation of the pool is all complete. All the hardware, as far as the steel work for the rebar, was completed last week, and South Shore will be up next Wednesday, I believe, to start doing the gunite work. So things are really moving along, and soon you'll actually see the full shape of it. I do have a few pictures to show you. This is some of the images during the demolition where they tore out the old pool and prepared for the new pool. Over 2 feet of gravel in place. Here you can see where they've started working on the left. They've started working on the deeper end. The other two, it's amazing to me how they actually put this together. They're using 1x3s with fabric that they actually molded. So it's very tedious work, but it's interesting. I mean, it is precision, but that's what it takes. They put this together. They form the outline of the pool, and then they'll start shooting the gunite up against the structure that they have built to start forming it and building it. And that'll start taking place next week. Here's another little image of some of the steel work that's in the bottom of the pool area and some of the piping. So it kind of gives you an idea. It'll be a formed gutter with gunite. There will not be a stainless steel gutter system, no seams, that type of thing. So will be a nice addition to the facilities that we operate. One thing I want to point out to you, if you are not part of Constant Contact or part of our Facebook page, it'd be great for you to be a part of that because you can get weekly updates of what's happening with the pool project. So we put this out every Friday. We did miss last week because Karen was out on vacation. Good for her, but then also we were done with the steel work, so not much to report on, but it'll start really shaping up next week and a lot more information will be shared. So once a week we send. The Maxfield netting project, which was a funded project for us, is complete. That consists of two 120-foot sections down the left field and right field baseline of the baseball field at Maxfield. You'll see on the left is just kind of an aerial image that kind of shows exactly where they're at. And then on the right, there's a couple of images that shows the piping and the netting in place. So this is to protect the spectators from direct hits, as well as missed plays at first base or third base, which we did have an incident out there this year, which luckily everybody was okay, but it was right, we had the footings in place and ready to go, but the netting hadn't been installed yet. So this has been a big benefit, especially with the Nighthawks and that caliber of play. So we're glad to see this in place. These will be seasonal. They'll be put up in the springtime, taken down in the fall, and then put back up in the spring based on use of that. So, the Maxfield lighting is complete. This is a Musco lighting system. This is the lease of the lights collaborative with the school system. So the school system pays 50%, and we pay 50% of the 10-year lease on the light system. These lights have a 25-year warranty on the lighting system. It's similar to the lights on the baseball field, but these are LEDs and provides quite a bright complex when the softball team is playing. So we're happy to have those in place. And again, that's a collaborative with the school system. One of the areas that we worked very hard for was establishing reserve funds in our last budget cycle, which is just right now, fiscal year 2021. We're to establish the park reserve as well as the WAVA reserve. And this year's contribution into those reserve funds is the $30,000 for parks and $35,000 for the WAVA reserve. So as we talk about bonded projects previously here, it's important for us to establish these reserve funds for all these investments that the town has made, because as you look at the last bullet, I think that speaks for it. As the assets do age, we have to replace them. So it's it helps those spikes in the operating budget or in the bonding end of things. So as things start wearing out and the need to replace them, we'll have this reserve in place so we can utilize that versus having that impact or that big hit on our budget lines for Parks and Recreation. So we will, the next budget cycle, we will be asking to annually put the same amount of money into those reserves. CIP planning for future projects. There was some discussion, and we'll talk again here about Maxfield. And this might be one of those areas when we start looking at the reserve funds. Maybe that's an area where this might address what we're dealing with out there. A couple years ago, we went to reissue our stormwater permit, and it triggered. We had them come out to take a look at what we wanted to do with some of our retention areas, where it comes off the parking lot in these retention areas and collects the water and then disseminates the water. We were looking to remove the mulch and put in some large gravel in those areas just to help with maintenance. And they identified that our catchment areas were at a lower level than they should have been. And that was stemmed based on the fact that we have a gravel parking lot because it was designed for pavement, built for gravel. So anyhow, we're okay with stormwater right now, but they would like to see us have a plan in place to remedy the stormwater areas. So we had budgeted, or we haven't budgeted, we've projected funding the parking. These have not been funded in the CIP, but this is an area where we need to hopefully address. This is a little image here that shows you some of the, and it's a little tough to see it here, but because it was designed for pavement, we do have the granite curbing in several sections of the roadway, the park, and it's starting to tip in. And basically because it doesn't have the support that it needs. So there's about 6 to 7 inches of granite that's exposed, so because it doesn't have the base. We did put some gravel into the main entryway a couple of years ago, but as you can imagine, gravel roads do change and based on traffic patterns and grading and that type of thing. So it's an area that we need to really address. So we'll be talking about that hopefully to determine what we need to do, whether or not we pave it, keep it gravel. And if we do keep it gravel, then we need to address how we're going to retain the granite curbing and sustain the asphalt pathways. Another project that has always been kind of on the list is the Kilowatt Park Master Plan. This is a 2008 plan. It's been sitting on the shelf, and we have pulled it off and dusted it off a little bit to take a look at it. But this particular plan addresses the north and south of Kilowatt. We've talked in this, again, these are projects that have not been funded, but projects that probably ought to be identified at a point. Are we going to address it? Or are we going to move forward with it? Projected cost, we've got $100,000 in here. That's no way, shape or form, the complete build out plan. This is just the kind of the first phase approach. Some of this talks about improvements to this particular area. For example, is the boat launch, making some improvements to the boat launch. This particular area where the boat launch is during the winter months when the ice is starting to move, downstream, can take a toll on this particular area. This is the pier kind of out off the deck area. So the 2008 plan talks about readdressing this, trying to make even a wider boat launch area, improvement of parking, maybe some more access docks, which is kind of shown. I can back up here a little bit. This shows the access road down, and then it's a little small to see, but you can see in the left-hand corner there, shows some of the improvements to the landing area as well as the boat launch. There have been some improvements since this plan with some wooden guardrails and hip replacements and that type of thing, but not much has been addressed with this particular plan. This is Kilowatt North. It shows additional parking in Kilowatt North. So if you haven't been there, this is kind of more the picnic area. So there's improvements with the pavilion and that sort of thing. And improvement with the walking path that connects both north and south. So that's some of the areas that are addressed in that plan. Here's what I was looking for. I'm sorry. Back up, but this shows the improved parking in that area as well as enhancement to the launch for motorized boats. The Park and Recreation Committee Commission, has been talking about the need for indoor community center space. Community Facilities Chapter of the 2019 Master Plan identified in the master plan the need for indoor community space and for us to start working on it. So the Park and Recreation Commission has been discussing the future needs and what that might be. What does that look like? We did a recent community-wide survey, and in that survey, we asked multiple questions about, would you use a community center? What would you like to see in a community center? A variety of questions. Those that survey has not been analyzed as of yet, but the Rec Commission is going to continue to work on that and at some point determine whether or not the future need of facility is there, and if so, they plan to put a subcommittee together to start working on what that might be. And that's it. I certainly can answer any questions that you might have. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So to talk about all that we do, we've got a great staff. Programming staff and park facility staff that do a tremendous amount for the town, and I can't say enough about how proud I am of them for all the efforts and commitment that they have, and we take pride in all that we do, and look forward to doing some things in the future and sustaining what we currently have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for that information, all those updates. It's helpful for people that aren't at those facilities to see what's happening. So it's great. Appreciate that. Questions, anybody? Dennis, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Housler. I was just curious, now that we have taken control of Christian Street Cemetery, are we mowing that too now, the town, or do we farm that out, or what happens there?
So I'll yield my question to the town manager because that is an active cemetery.
That is an active cemetery. Henry was kind enough to contract for the season for all of the mowing before he left. So it's on our list, but at least we don't have to deal with it right now.
Okay, but likely will next year, probably.
Yep, it's on the list of things in the binder that sits on my desk that Lana and I.
Just curious, 'cause from past discussions, I think you've had a hard time keeping up with the mowing that we have, so that'd be an additional thing, so, yeah. You talked about the turf, and I understand there's more details, but sometime I think it'd be good if we heard more about that. The last I talked to anybody, they were having trouble zipping it together, the stuff they got from Dartmouth, but I didn't realize it didn't work. So that was news to me. So I didn't know that. We visited the CIP every year, and we will again this year. And I haven't supported the paving down to Maxfield just because it's, with all the other things that we've had going on, it was hard to justify paving that. But I never thought it was I thought it was more of a want more than a need. I didn't know that the curbing was going to cave in, my words. And I didn't know about this drainage thing. until this presentation, but when we get down to when you present for this fall, when we get into budget season, it'd be very good to hear more about that. Maybe we need to look at that more careful. I just haven't because of, like I said, of all the other things we got going on. I really appreciated hearing about the real ice. I'd never heard of that. And so that sounds like just brilliant work there. Again, the Climate Action Committee, I'm sure we spend enough energy making ice, but now at least we don't have to heat the water and then put it on to freeze. So that was good. You mentioned about venting the locker room in WABA, mainly because of the virus. And I'm just wondering if we could think about using some of our COVID that we're going to get, I hope. If we could use some of our COVID money for that, that seems like if we're doing it, well, I played hockey there when that first opened, the WABA, which was then BOR building. And the last time I was in there, it was pretty smelly because there is no ventilation in it, just the original, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so I'm sure it could use ventilation. It was never built with it. And so I just hope that maybe for that particular thing, being that we need ventilation in confined areas, that we could use some COVID money that we're getting towards that, maybe.
We can look at it.
Yeah, it's a wait and see. I know. It just seems like a logical thing that if we're doing that due to the virus, that we could use that money for some of that. And the last thing I had, and thank you for all this, I was just curious. I believe we used to mow Kilowatt Field, and I'm just curious if that's right and if we still are.
So Kilowatt North or Kilowatt South. The field, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So Department of Corrections, used to do a lot of mowing for us. They did the non-active cemeteries and actually did a lot of the active cemeteries for the associations. And they did do a lot of the work down at Kilowatt as well. So they have been authorized to bring that service back, but there's been, I don't know the details other than there's a challenge at the court level with providing some of that work detail. So right now they haven't been connecting with us or haven't contacted us related to any municipal work at this point. So I don't anticipate it coming back this year, and I'm not sure what needs to happen for it to come back next year. So.
Well, that's really big news, and I'm sure the cemeteries would like to know more about that too.
Yeah.
I had no idea because when they shut Windsor Prison down, that's when we lost all that. And
so that was a different
corrections.
Yeah, so that was with the crew of 7 or 8 that they used to bring to Maxfield 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And like Hannah, trying to find employees for public works this summer, we have 3 40-hour week positions. Not April to October, so it goes down to 1, but over that period of time, 3 positions, and I couldn't fill one of them with anyone. So we're taking our existing staff, our 2 labor positions, and rotating them from the parks out to Maxfield to take care of that facility. I mean, we hired a couple of Nighthawks kids to help do some ball field maintenance, but it's a struggle. It was a struggle this year to fill those positions, but the corrections crews were great when they were there. Unfortunately, no longer for the Windsor, but the other
probation parole.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, and that would be good to have more of an update on that when you know more.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Beth. Thank you, Scott. Anything? Joe?
No.
Kim?
Yes.
Jim?
Hi there. Scott, I'm always, you and your team never cease to amaze me with all the things you do. I have a couple questions. One is, so the paving at Maxfield, it was designed for pavement, so the storm drainage with the gravel is actually less effective. Is that what you're saying, when it's triggering permit violation?
Yeah, so it's not, I guess you'd say it's less effective. What happens is in a big rain event, it doesn't pool like it's supposed to. It actually will sheet drain over the parking lot sooner than it's designed to. So if you can imagine an area that's been designed to take on water at a certain depth, with the fact that it's not paved, there's 4 inches of the parking lot that, would have been part of that retention area. So there's 4 inches less of the area to collect the water, and then it disseminates out in the drain area slowly, and filters into the drainage system of the facility. So.
Okay.
So it's designed for pavement. Can we address that in other than paving? I think so. Those retention areas just have to be excavated out more. So maybe that's the plan that you do if you keep it gravel. But then the concern related to the granite curbing just needs to be addressed, and that's something that Hannah's crew helped us with when we added some gravel. So maybe there's another option there for us, but we got to talk about it. If we're not going to put that in the CIP for completion.
Got it. Thanks. And then I'm curious if there's been any discussions, planning, action around, like I know the town has not adopted a climate action plan at this point, but I know Resilient Hartford, that group has put forth certain activities or requests about putting more fruit trees and stuff in the park. Like I'm just curious if there's any ongoing park transition in any way in that you know of.
Like alternative equipment, like battery operated equipment.
Well, that too. I think has there not been like some plantings and stuff in any of the town parks at this point? And I think we can come back to this during the climate action plan discussion, but somehow I felt like the green space in parks was being more integrated into that.
So Apple Corps and another organization, they're working out in West Hartford at Clifford in order to put in the fruit trees and some other plantings out at that location for alternative use. So there's an area out there that's going to get transformed into community garden space and fruit trees. So that's an active project that's taking place right now. I suspect you'll see that in other parks where there's open space that's not utilized for recreational sports, that sort of thing. We also have out here on the bandstand here in Lyman Park, they're working on a rain garden that will utilize the actual rain from the roof to collect in a catchment area that water can be used for other for watering trees, things of that nature. And then also it's an educational awareness. So hopefully folks will see it. They'll look at how it's been constructed, maybe build something like that to make their home to, conserve water and rainwater for home use. So it's pretty cool. They're not quite finished with it yet, but it's all volunteer effort. So take a peek at it. So it would be a nice educational opportunity to see how to put one of those.
I have seen it. It's pretty wild. And then my last question, you touched on, actually before my last question, you touched on the battery operator, electric, some of the small engine stuff? Has some of that been transitioning?
So the bigger commercial stuff, not yet. The state of Vermont, I think it was 2 years ago, bought a zero-turn mower that is a battery-operated mower. They haven't submitted or any kind of data related to that particular use. One thing we were concerned about that was the sustainability of the battery system. We heard a lot of information from some folks that have utilized them that, after about 50% of the power, it lost a tremendous amount of torque in the blade system as well. So, sorry about the feedback there. So no, we haven't seen products out there yet at commercial grade and hand tools, that type of thing.
Okay. Okay, and then my last and maybe most important question is, will Parks and Rec consider letting the town use your new beautiful logo? I think I've asked.
You're the select board. You guys do whatever you want. But I think as an agency, even though we certainly are under that symbol in the left-hand corner in the town of Hartford, like fire, like police, a lot of agencies in Parks and Recreation and municipal agencies have their own identity underneath that umbrella, and we kind of designed that as our identity, and we'll probably enjoy having it that way. If you decide you want to do something, then that's entirely up to you folks.
I'm getting the feeling that you don't want us to use the logo.
I very much appreciate that, Scott. Thank you so much. I'm good.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Scott. Other questions for Scott? All right. Thank you again, Scott.
Thanks again.
Matt.
You bet. Thanks.
And that will bring us, I think you're still on.
The Building Communities Grant Program.
Yes, that'd be great. When you're ready for that one, go ahead.
I just stopped here.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. We can share this.
Because I didn't write anything down. So we have applied for a building use, building facilities community grant to $25,000 to support the efforts of the pool project. And we're looking to utilize the funds, if we're awarded, to help us or to purchase some of the amenities at the pool. So as you might have heard in the bond bank discussion, what you've bonded is the dollar amount that you've bonded. So, but it can be used to, if you don't utilize all of the bonded funds, you can utilize that to pay off the, I think she said, to utilize the money for the principal payments. So I hadn't heard that before, so I'd be interested to see that. But our intention is to find money out there, even though we've bonded the project. It would be nice to find funding that is available. The $25,000 is the max amount that you can apply for through this program. So we're asking for authorization to finalize the application and submit the application, and hopes that we'll receive a $25,000 grant.
Great, thank you. Questions on that one, anybody? Okay, we'll entertain a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the select board approve the submission of the letter of support and grant application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ally. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing them, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Kim?
Aye.
Great. Perfect, thank you. So it's unanimous. And I think we'll take a break now until 8:05, so about 7 minutes. So you can run to the bathroom if you need to. And we'll see you back here at 8:05.
Should you put the code in?
Oh, teacher Dan.
Oh, look at that. Please now. Thank you. Great, so we are ready. So I don't know, Hannah, you want to start maybe, or
I mean, I
Tracy, or-
submitted it because I'm willing to take the
Yeah, yeah.
heat. It's the glory of the game. It's the glory of the life. So we were here a couple of weeks ago. We had gotten some new information about the stability of Gate Street between Fairview Terrace and Maplewood Terrace. There was no formal motion at the time. We wanted to let folks know as soon as we could. But we're back 2 weeks later. 2 weeks ago, we described a pretty significant long history of the settling roadway and the deterioration of the street. And if you were here 2 weeks ago, or you got to watch the meeting on your own free time, we did share some photos of the current way the street looks. While the memo stated that the timeline started in 2018, town staff and the select board have been briefed about the deterioration since 2015. Part of your agenda packet this week was some of those earlier consultations with various firms in terms of what's going on with the street. Since then, Public Works has continued to clean the surface, patch the roadway, trim trees, mow knotweed, but none of that work has been designed to address the underlying structure of the roadway and the retaining walls. And we're going to refer as the upper one, the one that goes up, the roadway, and the one that goes down, which is right near those homes on Wildwood Terrace. The fiscal 21 budget allocated $30,000 for low-level maintenance because there wasn't a clear path forward. Public Works has recently begun implementing surface treatments, and specifically in an attempt to provide a level surface for vehicles and pedestrians, but it's primarily meant to seal the road surface, which will work to prevent water from entering the road bed and washing through the dry laid stone retaining walls. So we're trying to keep the water out of the interior of the road and have it sluice off into a stormwater system the way it should. While Public Works was performing one of their regular spring inspections of the roadway, they saw significant winter damage and deterioration, and then got permission to get current measurements of the top of the wall alignment. So that's what the top of that downward retaining wall looks like. 2 weeks ago, Hannah, who's our director of Public Works, reported that those measurements indicated 2 to 3 inches of movement in a portion of the concrete top cap over the stone retaining wall that holds back the roadways and utilities above Maplewood Terrace. So we came forth 2 weeks ago and also provided information on other concerns that they noted that are longstanding concerns. None of this popped up under the snow overnight, but those include significant trip and fall hazards to pedestrians, rusted guardrails, and a surface that's too uneven at this point for the sidewalk plow to perform winter maintenance on. Summer's here, we like to forget, but Public Works does not forget that winter is coming. They're actually always thinking about winter. So at this time, it's really our professional obligation to recommend that we temporarily close Gate Street between Fairview Terrace and Maplewood Terrace, mostly due to the significant trip and fall risk to residents who use that unofficial walking path to travel. There's always risk that further retaining wall movement could cause a failure, which can put the residents of Maplewood Terrace and the property down in Maplewood Terrace at risk of property damage, injury, or death. And there's also a reasonable consideration that the movement of cars, while a small number overall, is a factor in the retaining wall's movement, along with the continued deterioration of the roadway. I have asked Hannah has asked our project manager to begin examining the area to provide information and suggestions for alternative solutions. And that does include rerouting the water main to allow for a more simplified reconstruction. So right now we do have a water main running underneath that street. It makes it much more complicated. And it means that we have to protect the roadway in a very different way. And right now they're working on all sorts of different things. But for now, we believe that we temporarily need to close the entire street to prevent continued safety hazards.
And anything you want to add? Okay, great. Thank you, Tracy. Questions or comments from the board? Dennis, go ahead when you're ready.
Need a little bit of clarification on why the walking path's unofficial. I thought that we barricaded it off to make it a official walking path.
My history goes back in that it's not an official sidewalk. It's actually still technically part of the roadway, but we did say, oh, we're gonna block it off so pedestrians can use it. It's not a sidewalk.
Yeah, understood. So, so if the plan to shut it off is to road traffic and then have pedestrians go down what vehicles travel on today?
Yeah, the section that people are walking on is the most deteriorated section. It's really uneven, it's unsafe. The section that the vehicles are going on, we can do some low-level maintenance within that 30,000-ish range, and make that decent for pedestrians to continue to walk down.
Well, it's pretty clear, I guess we have to do this, but when it's temporary, I hope it's very temporary, because I would just hate to see this shut down and put off forever and ever, because I need to know more, but this needs to be tended to, I think. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Joe, go ahead.
I appreciate it being temporary. This issue has been, this can has been kicked down the road time and time again. In the deterioration of that, we have come to this point. And the amount of money that we may or may not, we haven't decided yet, have to put into that road is exponential. We have to find out, and I need to find out the exact numbers. There have been numbers bantied about as much as $6 million and as little as $4 million to fix that part. If that is the number, I have reservations about dedicating that amount of money to that section of road. I don't know, but we have to find out the facts about it. I want full disclosure. I have been on that road and looked at even it becoming two-way again. So I have an open mind as to what we do with it. But we cannot kick this can down the road anymore. We're going to have to decide exactly what we're going to do and then move forward. One of the reasons I'm in this position is to start doing stuff. And there have been things from the transfer station, another item that has been kicked down, that can kick. Now it looks as if we're going to have to close it. We have to do things now. And some decisions are going to be painful. But for whatever reason, I was elected to do those things and make those hard decisions. Now you may kick me out in March, and that's okay. But I'm going to, with my colleagues, make those hard decisions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And again, we look to the experts here. We look to Hannah, and these issues started well before Hannah became on board. It wasn't, I don't think there's anyone in the select board that was on the select board previously when these things started to happen. So again, these issues have been kicked down the road from previous boards and previous whatever the reason. There probably just wasn't money. There's not money immediately right now. It's not to say that there won't be money down the road when we have an actual number. We actually know what that number is. We've got these ballpark figures that are very wide. and decide what we need to do. Can we leave the infrastructure under that road? Is it better to take it out irregardless of what we do? So there's a lot of moving parts here that we need to have the answers to before we can go forward. But we need to look at this. We all make sacrifices in town. We look at the businesses, we look at South Main Street that have had that road construction forever. You just have to deal with it for a short period of time. It's not forever. It's not saying that it will not be forever, but it's saying as of now, that's not our plan. But we don't want to do something that's going to last 5 years. We don't want to put another Band-Aid on this. We're either going to fix it and fix it right, or we're going to say this can't be fixed and this is our alternatives. So we want to continue to gather real strong factual information, the financial impacts on how that's going to fly, what that's going to do to us, because the people in that neighborhood definitely want that in all levels, closed, one way, two way, open, whatever. So I don't even think that all the members in the neighborhood up and down want exactly the same thing. And there are other people in town that that are like, I don't ever go over there. I don't care what happens in that neighborhood. Some people that don't have children in school don't care about what the school budget is. They just never vote for it. So people have different prerogatives and different understanding as to what's important to them. And we need to respect that in town. We need to agree to disagree sometimes. And as Joe said, we're not going to make everyone happy with whatever the decision is, but we're going to collect all the information, decide what we think as this board is best for the town. And that's where we are with that right now.
Yeah, Dan, I just have a question for maybe for Hannah, just thinking about if we don't want to find ourselves in a situation like this again. And I know that you inherited, this from sort of previous years of, to use the phrase that we're all using, kicking the can down the road. So besides not kicking the can down the road, I'm just wondering if you have any sort of broader suggestions for, if we're kind of moving into this situation again, or like ways that we can be sort of checking ourselves along the way so that something like this doesn't continue to get kicked down the road, and that we are being really cognizant of the steps so that we don't get to a place where we have to shut something down as sort of like a last resort. I know that's a big question, but
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
just if you have any recommendations for basically how something like this could not happen in the future, and what you might recommend to us in terms of sort of action steps in a more incremental way.
So I think, my staff, we really try hard to bring issues to Tracy and the community and the board and make recommendations, and we've had some tough times and, my short time here, we've had some administrative turnover, we've had COVID, and I can't speak for what really happened before I came here. So I think the best game plan for any of these situations is to be, really transparent and proactive about it and work with the town manager's office to develop a really effective capital plan. And I know Tracy and I have already talked about that and work through it that way.
I want to say too, Allie, again, as I try to work through my historic knowledge, Public Works sometimes has the most flexibility in their budget, and that they are salary heavy, but they also have a lot of projects and contracts and things like that. And so it's easier in tough times when you have an unanticipated expense to swing your head around and look at Public Works and just sip a little bit from that budget and sip a little bit from that budget. And the next thing you know, you've sipped a little too much from Public Works. And that's not just us. It's very, very common in municipalities across the country. So protecting our Public Works Department budget is also properly allocating, and then knowing that that's a priority for all of us is something that I know I want to hold tight on. And I have told Hannah I want her to not be so giving as maybe her department has been in the past. Kim has a comment. So sorry, I know you're on your own, but Kim, can we unmute Kim?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I have been on the road for the last several days, and most of it physically actually driving. So I haven't had a chance to read the that Norwich University report that David Briggs sent along, and I'm sure there'll be some public comment about that maybe, but I'm wondering if Hannah or Tracy, if you have had a chance to review that at any point, and if you have any professional opinions about it.
Do you want me to go? I think students are great. And I think outside perspectives are great. But there is a time and place for student work, and this is so complex and so deeply rooted in the community that I think having an independent contractor is really imperative. I also think that there are certain things that you can only learn when you've dug down into many community streets and seen what's underneath it all. And that's why when we begin to do this work to reimagine kind of what the street could and should look like, I know that I'll be looking for people with decades of experience, both technical and academic, and also having put jackhammers into streets and rebuilt them and rebuilt retaining walls. I want somebody with a pretty battered hard hat.
Thanks, Kim. Anything else?
Not at this time, thanks.
Dennis, go ahead.
Yeah, some further thoughts. Just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. But I still want to learn more like Joe. But I'm often troubled when we get down to where we haven't taken care of something to take care of it. So this is a thing that we've had and we haven't maintained, and it needs work. And so I usually support things like that. But I want to learn more, all the details. I think soon, hopefully before cold weather hits, I think it would be good for this board to do a site visit. I did a site visit. I walk it regularly anyways, but we board members had a site visit with Douglas Tuthill from Pomfret, who built part of that wall, at least part of it, years ago. And particularly the stone part of it. And he, for what it's worth, he thought nothing that had moved. The lower part before you go up too far, I'm not sure you got into the upper part that's also in trouble. But that was very educational. And during the site visit, you know, we walked around anybody can walk up and down the road, but it's on private property to go in around the back and look up at the wall. That would be worth a visit. There's snapped rebar in there and concrete crumbling and so forth. So I hope you'll take me up on that and we could do a site visit together and really learn about the thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Others?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Morris, Hartford. Most people know I grew up on that street, so my heart's into it as far as what's going on. But we have neglected to take care of that road tremendously. And I think if we look around, we'll find some other roads that are starting to do similar things. Just go about Perry Terrace, around the bend behind where my model home is up there. There's a 2-foot wide section of pavement drop 3 or 4 inches and the guardrail's leading out. And if that doesn't get taken care of or patched up, water's going to infiltrate down between underneath the pavement and make it worse, such as it's done on Fairview Terrace. We spent, we I think allocated around $200,000 to go towards the Fairview Terrace repair some years ago. I believe some of that money went towards matching like-kind funds for the bridge, for the VA cutoff road, and I believe we still have $30,000 sitting there. The road does look bad. I just walked the other day and I did some measuring. Whether we close it or we leave it open, I think we, number one, have to go in there and put some sort of really good coating on it, or we're going to have to spending more money down the road. Like I said 2 weeks ago, the roof is leaking. Well, we got to fix that leak. And then see, because right now, it's every rainstorm, like just what we had today or yesterday, is making it worse and worse and worse. We got to seal it up somehow, no matter what we do, or we're going to have such a catastrophe at the end. Well, not catastrophe, but a mess to clean up, because it's undermining this stuff. We were told last year the walls are not moving. Now this is the concrete wall, if I'm not mistaken, where the dip is, water is running there. And I think they've even put some patchwork in, I spoke 2 weeks ago, or some more. It looks like some fresh pavement there, but there's cracks all through that place. And no matter what we do, and until we decide to, I think we need to protect it as much as possible, so it doesn't cost us more down the road. The estimates that we had in the past were mostly all done when we presumed the whole road was failing, caving in. Then it was said last year, it wasn't moving. So those estimates are probably, they're old, number one. Number two, they're not based off of the same considerations that we probably have now. That's what I'm saying. So I guess regardless of what we do, I would say, let's protect what we have remaining there as much as possible. And that. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask is, if Hannah can answer me, what would be the minimum road width for a one-way that would be allowable? Just 15 feet?
For one way, it's typically 11 to 12 feet.
Okay. I measured the hill, and the narrowest area up there is 27 feet wide, and that's at the top. So, thought, just a thought. We have Jersey barriers to protect pedestrians from the traffic. If minimum is 27 feet, if we put up 2 rows of Jersey barriers for pathway and 1 row, how much room do we need for the Jersey barriers? 2 foot a piece and 5 foot plowing or pathway from 27. Couldn't we still keep it open? I mean, it's just thoughts. I mean, that's going to inconvenience a lot of people that lived up there. It's already inconvenienced for years, and I think they've all been too complacent and not saying, hey, we pay taxes here and we have a really crappy road. You know, let's do something about it. So, like Joe, thank you, Dennis. We got to do something. And the longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us. I thank you for your time.
Hey, Mike. Yeah.
Nancy Howe, White River Junction. And I understand the temporary need to close it, but one of my big questions is, what do you mean by temporary and how long is temporary going to be? And I appreciate, Joe and Dan, what you said about this is something that needs to happen and you need to get on it. But to be frankly, we've been hearing that for probably 10 years now too. So I would, be interested in knowing where this is going to fall on your plan. You've got a lot on your agenda. So how soon are you really going to get onto this? And see what we can do about what the options are. I would hope you would gather your information, but not make any real decisions until we consider a lot of options. And it's kind of pointless to go through tonight what anybody wants because we don't know what the options are. But I would hope there would be a lot of time for discussion and input from people. I would hope when you go up there to look at the neighborhood and just around that area, that's one section. But if you go all the way up in there, that is a huge area with a lot of residential developments, many houses up in that area that use this. And so it doesn't affect just the people right around that road. There's a whole big area. So I guess my comment would be temporary, I hope is short term, and that you can get right on this and get your information that you need. And we start moving and we're not waiting another 10 years.
Okay, I think you said it very well. Thank you. I don't think at this point we know what temporary means. I think we need to gather that information, and I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I don't know what that time frame is. So we will see. And as you said, I think now is too premature to even consider options. I think we need to have a real firm footing, if you will, as to understanding what's there, what needs to replace, and what the recommendations are. The engineers might say, no way can you put a two-way road in. They might say, yes, this is totally fine. we have no idea. So, but we also want to look at the cost too, and with all the other things that are going on in town, and be sensitive to that. Yes, this has been kicked down the road many times, as you said, but that was prior to this board, and so,
Absolutely. No,
so,
I agree with that.
and
Mike said,
it's
taking it
unfortunate.
down, it's now more expensive.
Exactly, right. And in this current environment, we know that there's a lot of issues with supply chain and with labor. So I don't know how that's going to impact things. So it might be in our better interest to wait, whatever it is, until next year, 3 years, 5 years. I have no idea. I don't know what those answers are, and I don't think anyone knows those answers until we get the information we need to base some solid facts on.
I guess my main point is I hope you get on to getting the information soon.
Exactly.
Given the fact I know you've got a ton of things on your plate, but.
And we're down 2 members, whatever.
Yeah, I hope this rises to the top.
Thank you, Nancy. Joe, go ahead.
And I agree wholeheartedly with what you say, but but one of the things that we have to do is make sure it's safe. And right now, it absolutely is not safe for pedestrians. And I have gone with Mr. Briggs, who is about to speak, gone up there and taken a look at it and gone up and down it. So, and it is in disrepair, and it scares me. And I actually, I went this winter to see and said to him that, we've got to fix this part. So I feel bad that when we say temporary, what does that mean? And because I'd love to give you an answer, but what I will do, I will promise you that we will be on it and that we will give you updates on it on a consistent basis. That I can promise you. So it's not in the ether, and it's not, you're just wondering, okay, where did this go on our priority? So that I can promise you, and we'll go forward with that. Is that fair? All right.
Glad to hear you are open to the facts, because we've been so patient. You may not have known how concerning this matter has been to us for a long time. This is about Hillcrest Terrace, Fairview Terrace, and Gate Street. So I want to just frame my viewpoints on this whole dilemma in some key words. The first one is tradition. You've been cutting off a neighborhood from its village. It's a historic district. It's related to that village for 120 years. And you're talking about permanently cutting it off. I heard the testimony and the dialogue at your last meeting. You actually talked about the benefits and the desirability of making that street into a footpath forever. That really got the hairs up on my back when you start talking about breaking the tradition. This is much more complex than simply 100 cars a day. And I appreciate Nancy's reference to how many of us there really are. Look how many you have here tonight. Secondly, this has been driven by fear. And I have a little bit of background in this. I've got decades of experience as an engineer. I'm still a licensed professional civil engineer in Vermont, and my background is in municipal engineer, which is street, water, and sewer. And I couldn't quite believe what I heard about the so-called complexity of building water and sewer lines down that hill. Again, they've been there for 100 years. Sure, they need to be replaced. All of the decisions were originally driven by the fear of a landslide, and the geotechnical reality of the soils on that hill does not lead in the direction of a catastrophic failure. It's not that kind of soil. What's happening right now with the little bits of movement that you're finally picking up on that you have to admit to is driven by erosion and frost. Frost is powerful, and it finally got to where it's time to pay the piper. Now, the cost of neglect has come due after 50 years of neglect. And I've been around here long enough to live all of them and been privy to a relationship with an iconic town manager in the form of Ralph Lehman. But given the tax base of Hartford, the cost is reasonable. And you heard that double down tonight when the lady from the bond bank came out and told you that you're not over borrowed. I mean, if you do the extension on even a $4 million project, the impact on us might be $100 a year on a long-term capital improvement. And this should be long-term. You don't pay for a roof in 3 years in your house. You pay for it in 12 to 15 years. This is the kind of thing you ought to pay for over the generations that need to step up and bear that burden. Little sidebar here. I think your Department of Public Works deserves far more professional support than you bring them. I would advocate for a relationship with an engineering firm or two on retainer where you can constantly refer to the experts who have decades of experience so that she has that support. I know that I can't run my business at 100,000 square feet of rickety old buildings without having constant rapport with experts. I pick their brain every day. If I went out to them every single time and tried to do the definitive feasibility study, I'd go broke. I have to have that relationship. It's part of good management. So I get a little frustrated when I think, oh boy, we're going to go through another $100,000 study. Now, with that in mind, last summer I brought students down from my alma mater, which is Norwich University. And sure, it's students, but they were driven and led by a PhD, a geotechnical engineer with decades of experience in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Alaska. Now, he said he's not putting his stamp on this because that's not his role. But his role was to come back to you with something that he had reviewed to say, this is reasonable. And the practical solution to rebuilding that street is not a tremendous job. It's stripping it out and rebuilding the subgrade so that finally it's protected from the elements and it's stable. And the students with their advisors put that to paper and came back with a cost factor for that 300 feet of street of about $600,000. So again, I'm tired of the fear factor that you put a $4 million price tag up there and everybody goes into reaction. And even at that, it might be $100 a year. So I've just about gotten to my limit when I hear these ruminations that really haven't incorporated all the facts. So would the Norwich study be the definitive study? No, but it's a very valuable platform off which Hannah can go to the professional community and say, I got this situation, what do you think about this? And start to get some practical results. And last summer, just as another sidebar, when they were out there, we tried to look at that subgrade. That's part of my background. The practical thing was to go out there and dig a test hole. And for that PhD engineer professor to be there with his students to look down there and be able to tell you tonight what's really down in the hole. Like, is it organic material or was it just a bad subgrade to begin with? Or is it obviously erosion, which everybody thinks it is? We couldn't get your Department of Public Works to come down from a half a mile away out of the Public Works barn because you didn't have the budget or the time to dig a hole. Yeah, we wanted to see what that soil was. We know what that means. We're practical people, but we couldn't get that done. So if I sound a little irritated tonight, I am. And I hope you'll listen to some of my neighbors here. They may not all agree with me. I've never been in a room where everybody ever did. But listen to a few of them. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Karen Richardson in Hartford, and I'm here with my husband Dennis. We've lived on Hillcrest Terrace for 42 years, I think. Anyway, we were the original young people that came to Hillcrest. Everyone else, we're the original home owners there. May O'Brien, the Blues, Viola Krause, who I think nobody probably knows. Okay, and David Ring, who recently passed away, his parents, the Rings, and the, well, you know, I think of them all now, but anyway, now all of the youngsters are coming in, there's families, we are the old folks, and I I was so amazed when we got our mortgage because there's something very much in the clause of a mortgage that tells you if you don't keep up your house, maintain it, that they can come and repossess it and take it away. And we've taken that to heart. We've taken care of our home. We've paid our taxes to this town. We've participated in the town. We've done everything we could. And now I think it's time for our town to help give back to us. We really need your help. I think if Hannah had been here back when this problem first came to us, we wouldn't be in this problem. I think she would have had that foresight to have started on this before we're in this problem. And I think that we have to also remember that the sidewalk that came up from Maple Terrace that we put in for pedestrians was never there. It was always a two-way street. The access for pedestrians is the footpath that goes from the end of Hillcrest Terrace down to the dead end of Fairview and then further down to town. And when they put the elderly home in there, they had to dig that up. So they did put it back in, but it's now uneven. It's not maintained. The town used to plow it and then became some issue over whether it was private or town land, which doesn't make sense because it was always a right of way. So a better solution, I'll just jump around a minute, but I would not want to see this closed even temporarily. We have waited. The last time it closed, we had no egress or ingress to our downtown. When we were determined by the Historical Society to be the historic terraces, it's because of our value to the historic downtown. These are old Victorians, Sears Craftsman's. Our home was built in 1909. One of the beauty and the gems of living in Hillcrest Terrace, Forest Hills, Fairview Terrace is our connection to downtown. We were always, I worked in the library. I volunteered with David's mother at the library before it was, the healthcare. And to then have that taken away from us because of safety. All right, we figured out maybe that money needed to be spent somewhere else, but we've waited and waited. And now we don't need the sidewalk. If we have to just have even our one way right now, while this gets figured out, while that price tag gets determined, while the engineers come in and say, all right, how do we fix it? We also need pavement on Fairview Terrace and sidewalks. But for the children's safety, it's time to take the responsibility to beautify our homes, to make them tax worthy, which they're not now. They have lost a lot of their beauty, and the gem of the 100, 200-year-old neighborhood is going because the town hasn't been able to keep up their end of the deal as we have tried. Single homes, people are buying them and really spending a lot of time on them. Take the $30,000 and put it into the walking path, clear out the brush. We tried to take a baby stroller down there the other day to the parade, and it's so uneven. It needs some hard pack and maybe a little pavement. Block off the walking area of that street and allow at least that one way while you're figuring it all out. I think that might be safe. Anyway, that's a suggestion. But my appeal is just to consider that most other spots of town get this kind of action. And so what I'm looking for, I think what we're looking for is, as Mr. Major said, is an actionable plan, not just kicking it down the road again. We want an actionable plan. If you block that off so those pedestrians don't fall over that rusty grate, trip on the sidewalk and you can't plow it, then just block that and give us the actionable plan while you're working on that, because it's our turn. That's all. Thank you for your time.
you.
My name is Crystal Pearson Moses. I live on Hillcrest. I'm in the old blue house, as many people know in town. And I really want to thank my neighbors for coming in and kind of talking about it. I look at our neighborhood as, for my husband and I, and then the more immediate neighbors, as kind of the next generation in that neighborhood. We live in these historic homes, and I look at it and going, walking my kids around the neighborhood and not being able to access downtown during a parade. I want that vision for that neighborhood back that everyone else has always had. That's why I'm there. I'm in a walking neighborhood. I want to be down there. I want to see things, sidewalks for the safety of our kids. I know the concerns on Fairview Terrace with the speeding and the speed bumps, and I think we've taken measures to reduce that. But I think we need to continue to look at what was the neighborhood and what can we make it become again. And I think that's really important for this up and coming next generation that's moving in there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Russ North, White River Junction, Hillcrest Terrace. Guess what? I'm in favor of keeping it open. I think one of the things, you've said the right things. I understand you need information. And I'm heartened to hear it's not going to be a quick decision. And I also understand I may not like your decision. I may still like you as people. I may not like your decision. But one of the things we have been hearing is that we're going to do something. This is only temporary. It's time for that to change. And Joe and I share a meeting every 2 weeks. So this will be my opportunity to ask Joe, how's it going? Where are we at with this? And I will, because I think one of the things that's come out is we've been a little quiet. We've sort of let things go, and that's not going to happen anymore. The other point I want to make is, I understand it's going to be a lot of money, but we're rewarding bad behavior if we don't restore the road. We're saying, oh, we've neglected it for so long that it's now too expensive. Where is the civic responsibility? We're not talking about putting in a new road. We're maintaining a road that has been there for, I don't know how long. So that is part of the social contract of being a taxpayer in the town of Hartford, looking after each other. So I think it's important that to the extent possible, you take a chance, and maybe it's going to be expensive. I've been on boards myself, and let me tell you, no one's ever told me their taxes were too low. So you just got to take it and sometimes fight for what's right.
Hey, Chris.
Good evening. My name is David Davison. I live at 74 Fairview Terrace. If you look out from my front porch, you're looking at Gate Street. I've watched that day in, day out, week in, week out. I happened to see the surveyor who came and did the survey last July. He says, "Hi, David. How are you doing? I'm seeing you again." When he took a lunch break, I went over and stood where his survey instrument is, and I looked at where his markers are on Gate Street. I have not heard anybody say anything about Fairview Terrace away from Gate Street particularly, but that is not included as one of his measurements. He stopped short of that. There is a dip. My car can't make past the Jersey barriers now. The turning radius is too much. So I have to pull up on the street to the first parking lot I can and turn around and come back down. If I'm not careful, when I pull the front of my car out into the right-hand lane so that I can back up, that right front wheel drops way down. That part of Fairview Terrace is also falling. The side barriers to keep you from falling off the edge is made out of old railroad rail that sticks up, and then they've put 1.5 inch angle iron between them, except that it rusted and then it broke. And I called Public Works and they came out, and Hannah, you do a great job. They came out and welded it. Now it's broken again. That thing has got to get fixed. And I'm going to say that I cannot see it being closed. And here's why. You take a Google map and you take an aerial view, like from a satellite, and look down. We are the only exit from that entire residential area that comes to the village. One of the closest entrance that we have is Airport Road. The traffic circle is great, except you know what happens when those cars come off the edge of that traffic circle? They're going like they've been on a sling, and they're going like a bat out of you know where. It was that exit off Airport Road was on a list of the 10 most dangerous places here in the area. And now that traffic has increased. I expect there'll be some paint put on the pavement eventually, but I sat and waited one day, and the car wanted to turn into the shopping place across the road, but they didn't know where to put the car while they're waiting. And so it sits there and sits there, and everybody starts backing up. Then they moved, and suddenly there's a big swish coming down. After you go off Airport Road, go around the corner on Sykes Avenue. There's the Lower Hyde Park. That's the first one. And then you go down to Lily Pond Road. That's the second one. And then there's one just on the hill where they're bringing the sidewalk up. And then there isn't anymore. There is nothing on the downtown part of that whole area where we can get cars through, and we can't come back up because it's all blocked up. We know the condition. So while I sit up there, oh, one other thing. When they were building the what do they call it, village at White River Junction, they drove some tremendously big trucks over that extension on Fairview Terrace. I called the police twice and asked them to please stop that. Those big Mack trucks and those big off the road pieces of equipment were really tearing things up. So just to kind of prove my point, I took a tape measure out. I know how to read a tape measure. And I measured a crack right in front of my house, which was only about 1 inch. Now it's 3 to 4 inches, depending on where you measure it. And the thing I was surprised about, I actually took a carpenter's level out and used it in several places on the surface. When I got to the part where I had the 3 inches, guess what? It dropped on the side toward the village. So either something is shifting a little bit under there, or maybe all those vehicles drove it down. I don't know, and I'm not a civil engineer. But something's happening now clear up the side, and I'm not sure where all this is going to go, but everything goes downhill eventually. So I'm dead against closing the road, but I'm willing to work with all of you and be calm and with Joe's assurance for us why. I look forward to being informed as to where we're going. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello there, Todd Campbell, White River Junction. I've been on Fairview Terrace for 3 years and then moved up to Chellis right at the top, across from Hillcrest for the past 6. Gate Street is a twice a day, every day trip for me, at least when it was 2 late. Now it's 1 time a day. So the around that we have to face now to get to my house is either through South Main or up to Airport, as other people would describe the route. So, and I just want to say that I'm pretty much in agreement with everybody else that's spoken here today. You said that the purpose of local government is to support the infrastructure. I strongly agree with that. The access being locked down to being just one way out of Fairview, if you close the end of that, also strongly agree with that. And I feel like, over the 9 years that I've lived directly in that area, that every 2 years I come here to say something about this road. And I know that that's been addressed. And 8 years ago, it was a study, and the study came out and it said $4.5 million And we had all the answers and then nothing happened. And then we closed the road and then we did another study and then we opened it up and then Norwich University came by, they did a study. So we got lots of studies. So I appreciate your need to solicit information and quotes, but I'm really concerned about the time frame. And I don't want to come back 2 years from now where we may have all new faces sitting up here who need answers and studies to determine the best path forward. So I appreciate the comments you guys have made about commitment to action, but it really needs to be like now that we contract somebody that meets the requirements of whoever needs to decide, that we have an actual, here's options A, B, C, and D, costs this much money if we do this, this, or this, and this is what's going to happen. So while I would love to keep the road open, I certainly understand the reason that you need to assess it properly, but I'm here to like encourage the time is of the essence and it needs to get done. So thank you all for your time.
My name's Tom McCleary. I live on Chella Street and the corner of Chella and Forest Hills Avenue, 176 Forest Hills Avenue. I'm certainly here to support the keeping open Gate Street. I mean, to find a permanent solution. Obviously, it was the number one thing that I'm here to advocate for. Restore it to eventual two-way traffic. To me, it's all it's infrastructure. I mean, I guess I'd like to say just for you guys, I mean, it's an evidence that we're here until, I mean, you guys are here, I guess, till 11 o'clock on some nights, so you're obviously just swamped with issues, and this is only just one issue that you have to deal with. So I certainly, want to acknowledge the fact that you've got a lot to think about. You've got a lot on your plate. Everybody does, the selectmen, the town employees and so forth. But so ever more the reason that I guess I would reiterate what Dave was saying about you guys not doing enough to avail yourselves of that report that came from Norwich University that was, pre-gratis, put in your laps to use, for, I mean, hopefully, sounds like not all of you didn't have that chance to read it, but it seems to me like you're not really, the fact, you got so much to do, for your jobs, it's important to just take advantage of the things that you do have, like that, that engineering report. I'm not an engineer myself, so I can't speak to, it's, the engineering competency of that report, but it did give a final dollar figure of what they thought it would cost. And I mean, so that's a starting point, I would think, that you guys could use. Anyway, I've said enough. It's why these meetings go on forever. I'm just here to say I think you guys got to do something about that Gate Street. So thank you.
Thank you. Hey, any other questions or comments? Right. So this is a potential motion item. So we'll entertain a motion if someone would like to put one forward.
Question
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
So, the thought I had is that we have our motion to close this, but it doesn't say when. And so I'd be interested to know when that is. And is it possible we should consider some of the suggestions that we've heard? One thing that's going in my mind, and I think I mentioned this when we last met, is if the walking path is a problem as far as plowing and so forth, there is the other path that runs down behind the village. So people could still walk downtown even if that part was closed. That isn't maintained. It hasn't been in my memory. Somebody said it was, but I didn't. It's when town manager Puller was here, they researched that, we thought it was town or right away or something, and there's no evidence as far as when he was here that it is. So that would be on private land. Some of it would be the villages, and I'm not sure about the rest. But anyways, just some thoughts about when and possibly consider other suggestions.
Yeah, I think it's sort of when it can happen. I mean, I don't think we really know. It's probably not going to be tomorrow. It's sort of when the staffing is available to make that happen. And at this point, I don't think there's anything's off the table. I think that we just need to really have some more information, get a price tag for if it's going to be one way, two way with a sidewalk, all the different options that we're going to have. I think that's where we kind of are. So until we sort of see what that is, then I don't really know how we move forward. But I think that all the options are out there for us to consider.
Yeah. The hazard doesn't come until it snows, I guess, because we can't run the sidewalk plow in the walking portion. The slope so much that would be unsafe.
I think it's
So-
unsafe now because there's no guardrail and it's so uneven that I think it's just
Well, there is a guardrail. You can take,
it's a swing, so it's not a guardrail.
but
It's
it
a swing.
is there. As far as the walking path going the other way, it's got rocks and no railing, and it's a little tricky at the bottom by the village and whatnot. So
Dennis, not everyone's as agile as you are, so we have to remember that.
that varies. Anyways, but we do a site visit before we make that decision. Have you all walked this? So you all know what's going on?
Mhm.
Well, I just want to throw those things out there before.
Dan, Kim has raised her hand as well.
Okay, so we'll go to David and hope this is quick because you've already spoken once, and then we'll go to Kim.
Just like to double down that my opinion is this is not an imminent failure. And that the track record we've experienced for all my life and over the last 10 years has not been fraught with any kinds of accidents. I know it's a little uneven out there, but we're all people who live in the world where we climb Mount Cardigan for fun. This is not like that. And so I don't see the imminent risk here. And so while you're going through the deliberations, if you're swift, you can get to a reasonable conclusion, but don't penalize us in the meantime when we don't have an imminent risk of failure on that slope.
Kim, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want to clarify a couple of things that I've heard. One, I can't remember if it was Mike or someone else, but the $200,000 that had been allocated and then reallocated was not for repairs, that was for engineering. And then there was $30,000 that was sort of kept for just general upkeep as is. And I'm curious about two things. One, so I'd definitely be interested in seeing that 200,000 or whatever it will cost for engineering to be reintroduced in budget season. But I'm curious if Hannah, if at the time that those interim town managers proposed that to the board, I mean, I remember feeling like, oh, okay, yeah, it sounded reasonable to me. But now in hindsight, I'm really regretting that decision. And so I guess I'm curious, Hannah, if you had any opposing position at that time to those recommendations, not to rehash old decisions, but I'm also like just considering how bad a decision I think it might have been. And then I'm also, I guess just wanted to clarify too that the board, we've only received that Norris University report 3 or 4 days ago. And anyway, I personally have not had a chance to review that whole thing. But the general concept that David Briggs just described in terms of resurfacing and what the structural, anyway, getting the engineering to find out, like, if we were to just rip out and completely resurface that all the way up beyond, with the crumbling parts of Fairview Terrace. And I'm curious also, just last thing, also a question for Hannah, and then I'll step back, but is there any general paving scheduled in your 21, 22 paving schedule for that top part of Fairview Terrace at all? Like above the one-way section? And I'll mute myself now to hear it.
So right now, we don't have the upper Fairview section in our kind of 5-year plan. It doesn't mean that that doesn't change based on conditions or, budgetary amounts.
In terms of the past, Kim, we're all human and we all try our best and we fail, but I try to not look back in the past and say what was possibly a decision that somebody who sat at this desk before me made and the personal back and forth between my staff and those people. So I don't think it's something that I can speak to, and it's not something that Hannah can speak to, is what may have happened. The interim town managers made these decisions, and we're going to live with that, like a lot of things, and move forward.
Okay, and I thank you. I appreciate that. As I was asking it, I realized it might not be that helpful. But yeah, I guess in terms of if we opt for a temporary closure, then like Joe said, we need to keep on what are the next steps going forward in terms of figuring out solutions beyond permanent closure. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, just go ahead, and this will be our last public comment on this topic.
I just wanted to add one thing. The comment, I stayed away from the trail that's behind. About 4 years ago, I asked the select board, could we put some kind of temporary lighting like solar panels on that and open it up so that people wouldn't have to walk on Gate Street? That path was started in as far back as 1885. It was the trail that ran from now the current Amtrak station up to the top of the hill, which is up the top of Hillcrest. They had a campground there, and they would have their meetings there, so the people would get off the train, walk with their camping gear up, and that's where they were. And if you take a look at the 2012 Google Street View of that area, you'll see that was quite a smooth place and an easy place to get up. There are places on there, for example, that slide down at the Care Place, where you come off the trail and go down onto their area to get on down off the hill. That is terrible when it rains. My wife's got Parkinson's. Some of our other friends have troubles with their legs and things. They can't get down that any longer. So I put that to you that was an option at one time, and I think it still could be if some of those trees that have fallen down could be sawed up and taken away. But I think that's probably a village thing. The part of the trail behind my house, my wife maintains that she can get up there, and the poison ivy starting to come in and that sort of thing. But just an option.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, go ahead.
I think one of the things that I'd like to know, and I think everyone here would kind of like to know, is the timeline for when we want to close it. I mean, that I haven't seen that. If we close it tomorrow, then what? When will we get someone to do the study or do? I want to have some concrete things. If we do close it, have a date where we close it, and then have what we're going to do at least, and not just have it out in the ether. Talked all about not kicking the can down the road, but I'm going to unfortunately ask to do this and put this motion off until we have some concrete things. And if we're going to close it, what are we going to do the next, and by our next meeting, have some definite, is that possible to have some definites by then of what we're going to do, study or how that's going to progress?
And adding to that, is the road and the sidewalk, whatever, is it safe enough to keep it open another 2 or 3 weeks or
Yes.
what? I think it probably is, but I don't know. I mean, you're the expert, so.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So the worst case is Scott Cooney calling me at 2:00 in the morning and telling me that the retaining wall fell and Wildwood and the people who live there are now injured or under dirt. When I was a performance auditor, I would ask departments what keeps you up at night. And if they came in, if I asked myself that question about this topic, that would be number one. The second one would be, yes, we're hardy folk, but somebody could trip and fall tomorrow and sue the town. And we would probably end up settling, but it would cost us all a lot of time and money. So there's risk there too. And I always try to present both of these things. So those are the two things as town manager that concern me from a risk standpoint. Primarily that somebody would get hurt down there. That would be another terrible thing that I would hate to see one of these faces not looking the same, see broken limbs, see somebody go over a guardrail. That would be the worst case, or see a stroller go over that guardrail. Because I'm a parent and I walked that. I actually have a cell phone sized chunk of Gate Street that sits on my desk because it was so loose that I picked it up and I took it with me. So what's the risk? That tomorrow could be the worst day ever for the 7 of us, and for that person that gets hurt. That's the risk. In terms of a timeline, we're gonna need money. This isn't allocated. This isn't budgeted for. That 200,000 went to VA cutoff. We got 30 grand, which is gonna get us a big old pile of asphalt and some hours from the folks, and that's about it. It's not gonna get us qualified engineers. And that time will take time to do what we call an RFQ. So we'll go out, we'll say, hey, can you tell us what are your qualifications to possibly do this work? Can we have that conversation with you? And then a request for proposal, very similar to the transfer station, to the solid waste facility. In terms of that, we'd need to look at if we could get the side that vehicles come on right now, if we could get that cleaned enough up to where my public works director said, yeah, we can get a sidewalk plow down it and we could keep it open for the winter. Honestly, I think if we close it, I don't think we're going to see it before snow hits in terms of getting in there and really figuring out just the cost alone to replace those guardrails, which we can't replace because the concrete is literally crumbling under them. That's not feasible before it gets too cold to actually do this work. I don't know when the asphalt plant closes, but they do close down. Thanksgiving is the last time for asphalt to be manufactured. So it's a tough pill to swallow. I don't talk badly of the people who came here before me, but there's some stuff that I was really shocked to see when I did a site visit there, and really, really concerned me and my responsibility to all of you and to the people. So sorry, Joe, that was an awful answer for you.
No, I mean, I can't sit up here and talk about, we're gonna, make tough decisions and not have you be honest and open. And that's your job. So I appreciate that. And that's our job to decide what we're going to do.
Go ahead.
Thank you again. As far as closing it, I guess my own feeling is that, yeah, there's risks everywhere. If you walk down Fairview Terrace from the top, the more risky part is in behind what was Green Mountain Furniture or whatever, the green cement block building. It's very narrow there. There's no sidewalk, and there's a steep bank on one side, guardrails on the other. And if it's just a risk. If we're going to cover everything and worry about somebody getting hurt, to me that's more dangerous than the part that's got Jersey barriers to protect from cars. And until ice hits, I can't see that it has any more hazard than some of these other areas that are steep and uneven and whatnot. But I understand the need when winter hits, ice, freezing temperatures, but I don't before that, I guess. That's where I'm at.
Ally, anything? No, anything more? Well, I find us in the pool situation here, where we have an expert, public works director, and our town manager recommending something to us, and we're not acting, and that scares me. I hear all of you here. We don't know what the time frame is. It could be tomorrow, we could have an accident. There could be none at all. We don't know what that is. I think everyone in this day and age is much more shoe happy than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. That concerns me. And I don't want to have that hanging over my head that we have this information that's potentially dangerous and we didn't act on it. That's my concern.
I'm happy to make a motion if you like,
Yeah, Kim, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move that the select board support the town manager and the director of public works in closing Gate Street between Fairview Terrace and Maplewood Terrace for a temporary and undetermined amount of time to address significant safety issues. I added the temporary in there. I hope that's okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ally. Any further questions or comments? None, we'll call the question.
I'm gonna decline. I'm gonna vote no, mainly because I think we should have stamped a time on it when we were going to, so it'll let people know for one thing when it's going to be closed. And so many uncertainties, and somebody mentioned the fear factor here, and so all those reasons are why I'm going to say nay on this. Thank you.
Let's give this gentleman a chance to speak since he hasn't yet.
Dave Laro, 249 Hillcrest. Dennis had suggested that you guys go down there and take a look personally. Can you do that before you close it off?
I mean, I think we all have individually. I think we've all been there to look at it as this has come up to us. So I don't know what the point of all of us going down together, holding hands, looking at it if we've already all been there. But if people want to do that, I'm happy to do that.
That was what
Yeah,
the suggestion.
Yeah,
I don't think Dennis knew that
we had all been there.
Been there. I don't want to speak for you, Dennis. But
I don't know if you folks
Yeah,
didn't know, but I'm hearing that we all have.
yeah, and I was actually at the site with the Norwich, but that's absolutely valid and understandable.
So we have a motion. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm that I have also spent quite a bit of time on that hill.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and we're calling the question now. So all in favor say aye.
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 Nay.
Nay from Dennis, and I will be in favor aye.
I just add something. So a couple of things. One of the things that I did say is that we're going to continually keep you updated on what's going to happen. I want to make sure that comes to fruition. When things are going to happen and how they're going to happen. This is very tough, and it's not popular. But you have my commitment that it is something that will be in the forefront of what I do for as long as I'm on this board.
Are you gonna have give us a date? Your engineering study will be by a certain date.
Yeah.
There will be a engineering company scheduled to be there to look at the.
So that's one of the things that I in talking to the town manager, I want to make sure that we do. So as soon as we find those, that there are a few steps, and when we have those steps, we'll tell you exactly when. We will put that out. You have my.
5 years from now.
I'm sorry. No. I mean, and this will be a focus.
Hold you to it.
Please.
Can they evaluate the risk? Because all we heard is the risk evaluation. of the town manager, which I don't agree with. So maybe an outside second opinion.
Yep.
Would be a healthy thing.
And that's absolutely fair, and that'll be a part of it.
We don't have the money, because that was spent for another project.
We'll find some stuff. I mean, I know that is.
I think under the concrete is lots of gold coins, is my theory.
There's no secret. I think it's going to involve a bond.
I think so too.
So, like I said, I'm committed to keeping you abreast of what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think one of the things that this board, for whatever reason, and I don't agree with, is that we have not been transparent. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. We will be, I will be, and I'll be focused on that. I mean, the fact that you came here tonight is a testament of how much you care about that stretch of road and how much it's important to you. I wish more citizens cared about our town as much as that. And given that, my obligation to you is to make sure that we do our job. And part of that is to make sure that you know what's going on. If nothing else, I will get a phone call and an email from Dave Briggs every other day to make sure that I'm doing this. So given that, that's our commitment, okay? And you can hold me to that.
Yes, Dennis.
I don't know how many people are watching us here, if that get a feel for how many people are tuning into this, that I don't see on
12,
TV can tell us that.
18, I'm not sure.
Like
Three attendees, yeah.
we can't count who's watching on other things other than Zoom. So if you're watching through your local,
Oh,
you,
okay.
we can't count
That's good
those.
to know. I didn't know if we could know that or not.
All right, good. That brings us to the Strategic Equity and Inclusion Plan update.
Wow, and everyone leaves on that.
It's gonna be our usual empty room. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too.
Nice job building that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to gladly say that Mary Ann, the town manager, and myself met last Wednesday for the town manager to get some background on the strategic plan. She had questions concerning the strategic plan and where it was at and how it was done, because she wasn't a part of it. Many of those questions were answered. Now the kind of the heavy lift starts. She has to, go to her staff, her department heads in particular, and determine the things that we need to do to move this forward. We also want to solicit our partners, H. Corey, as well as the school board. You represent both parent and parent.
Yeah.
And in making this work. It is a heavy lift. And there have been board members in the past that didn't think this was needed. There are citizens in this community that don't think this is needed, but it is much needed. We will progress, and like I said in the last situation, we will continually update you on what we're doing and the progress that we're making. I have talked to both the town manager and the chair on continual updates, not every week, but maybe every other week or every month on what we do. So.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Questions or comments on that? Anybody? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
We have commission meeting reports.
Oh, sorry, did I skip that? Yes,
so.
sorry, yes, thank you. Commission meeting reports. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I do have a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
So I know, Kim, you had mentioned, you were asking Scott Housler about using parks for different food sources. And I know he spoke to basically what I was just going to share about what Resilient Hartford is up to. They had their first design meeting for the Clifford Park Food Forest a couple weeks ago to think about some of their goals for the park and kinds of trees and shrubs and also sort of the environment that they wanted to create at the park. So they are moving along with that project, which is very, very exciting. And then I did want to share an update and maybe if folks have some feedback, if Tracy, if you have some feedback on this, from the Ad Hoc Committee on Emergency Shelter. And I'm looking at my notes because I want to make sure I get it right because it's kind of confusing. But one of our working groups, I know you haven't heard from me in a while on this committee because they've sort of been in this holding pattern with trying to move forward on making a proposal to shift some of the regulations for RV vehicles, being able to be permitted to be essentially as a sort of dwelling unit for folks who might be unhoused. And working to make that a permanent option for folks, permitted option for folks on a homeowner's property, potentially with the consent of that homeowner. And then also making a recommendation to the Planning Commission to lift sort of the 14-day limit on RVs being able to be parked in a particular area so that, again, unhoused folks who might be needing that kind of housing can have more flexibility in terms of being able to park an RV for an extended period of time. And this was an option, again, that we were pursuing, just thinking about, we know that moving into September, there's going to be an eviction or the ending of the moratorium on evictions. And so chatting with Michael Redmond and some other folks, it's anticipated that we might get at least 30 more folks who are unhoused when that moratorium ends. And so this working group that has been working on this is kind of, has the stamp of approval from the Planning Commission, but is sort of in a holding pattern with the Planning Department and wants to, be working with them and be allies with them in making this proposal happen for the shift in the regulations. But they're kind of, I think, being kind of going back and forth with recommendations to bring in the fire marshal, Tom Peltier, to submit a checklist to be able to say these RVs are basically go through or comply with fire code. And Tom's not sure if with these kinds of dwellings, since they're RVs and they're on wheels, as opposed to being like an accessory dwelling unit in somebody's backyard, like kind of more rooted in the ground and not on wheels, he's not really sure if it's fire's jurisdiction because they're RVs. And so I think there's just kind of the working group is feeling like we're sort of in a holding pattern. And with sort of, again, the imminent realities of more folks being unhoused in our community in the near future, wanting to, be moving that along, again, being allies with the Planning Department, but to be able to really address that critical need that we're sort of facing. And so I think the concern is that if we're moving at the pace that we're moving now with the Planning Department and then being able to make a proposal to the Planning Commission, that we might not be at a place where we'll have something in place, emergency housing measures in place by the time that we need them. So I just wanted to share that with this group, with the broader public, and then with Tracy, if there are any thoughts or questions about that, but that's where we are.
How will you determine, since there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, there will be a little bit of a flood of people that will be unhoused, how will we determine who gets to stay in the RVs?
That is a good question. It seems like if that's something that is a little bit more kind of on a case-by-case basis, and it really would need to be, have the support of a homeowner to say, like, we know that this person is parked in an RV, that it might be sort of case by case as we're sort of finding out who is okay with that, to be honest. knowing that, you know, it's a very particular situation. So I don't have the clearest answer on that at this moment. That's a good question.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Joe.
Just very interesting listening. I just would wonder, I'd hope that whatever vehicles are parked, the exhaust system's okay, so we don't hear about carbon monoxide poisoning or something. Particularly after it snows and snows possibly around exhaust and whatnot. So,
Thanks, Dennis. Anyone else have updates?
yeah,
Yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
thank you. Quickly, zoning passed the one and only applicant they had this month's, next month's meeting, no application, so no meeting. And Historic Preservation Commission is still working on their, now what is, instead of demolition ordinance, it's demolition delay ordinance, which has soothed a lot of people that had concerns about it. So they're still working on it, and I think it's moving along good now. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. Joe, anything? I went to an Energy Commission meeting, and so I'm talking about doing the energy, the window dressing program. So that was where there'll be inserts for different windows. There's a lot of state aid for that. So just all the details on how that is going to work and what that's going to look like. So that was sort of the focus of that, which was good. So, what else?
Nothing from Kim.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda now.
Well, I guess since Kim decided to leave us, she's
Here.
bestowed, she's bestowed it upon me.
It's your turn anyway.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right, Kim. Forgive me. Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the payroll ending for July 24th, 2021. We approve the meeting minutes for July 6th, 2021, and approve the AP manifest for July 23rd, 2021, and July 27th, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Dennis, all in favor, or sorry, any other questions or comments?
I do.
Dennis, yeah.
Just board members, there on page, I don't expect you to look this up. On page 25, there's a fee for Wright Reservoir, $350. We really should decide whether we're gonna, at some point, repair or do away with that. It's just that we're getting, I've asked this question before, so I know what it is. We're paying this because if we stop paying for it, we can never rebuild it. I think that's right. And it's looking more grim by the year here as far as us rebuilding Wright Reservoir. And we just keep paying this $350. And if we're never going to reopen it, we should stop that inspection, that annual fee. Just throwing money away. If we're not, if there's hope that we may revive that, then by all means, I guess, keep it. But with something for future thought, we should think about. It's a minor amount, but still money.
Yep. Thanks, Dennis. Good point. Any further questions or comments on that? So call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Great, thank you. So then that will bring us up to the executive session. So we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. That's what I had to say.
No, you gotta read the.
Oh. Oh, right. Okay, Mr. Chair, in accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, the select board will enter into executive session to discuss confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body, Title 313A1F.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah,